Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Lawcast. Cush, it's WrestleMania season.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus, this is the time of year that I live for. This is the time. We have waited all year long. We've watched all these crappy shows. We've done themed shows. We've done all of this stuff. We developed a Patreon. We got to more of you than ever before. And now, to you viewers out there who have not been with us for more than a year, this is our Super Bowl. This is our World Series. This is our WrestleMania. And it's talking about WrestleMania.
Yeah, 2 years ago, we started with WrestleMania 1, and we did all the Hogan era WrestleManias. And then last year, we did the New Generation, the Attitude Era, and we ended with WrestleMania 17, which was a perfect kind of endpoint for a year, a triumph, a show that launched the WWE to new heights, a show that in a lot of ways they're still riding off of to this day. And now we're going to enter a stretch of WrestleManias that I think are some of the most interesting shows in wrestling history as we watch WWE kind of deal with the end of the Attitude Era and try and muddle through to the other side to what is going to lead this company into its next era and really, really struggle with what that answer is going to be for years.
I mean, the question that they're trying to answer here is one that may be unanswerable. How do you follow the greatest show in wrestling history? How do you follow the most iconic show, the most iconic match in wrestling history? How do you do that?
Well,
Uh,
they had a pretty good. They had with the return of Hulk Hogan to WWE into WrestleMania. They had a pretty good shot to follow it up. If you were gonna ask for something to follow up, the end of the Attitude Era, Steve Austin turning heel, Steve Austin and Vince McMahon joining forces, having Hulk Hogan come home is about as good as you're gonna get.
Unless you decide that he needs to be a bad guy.
Yeah, we'll get to some of the issues they run into along the way, but that really is to me, when I think of this WrestleMania, it's the Hulk Hogan homecoming, and somehow there's nowhere more appropriate that it could be than Toronto, Canada. WWE finally returns. I'm surprised it took them this long to run WrestleMania in Toronto again after you know WrestleMania 6 being such a great and memorable show, and them doing such strong business up in Toronto for so many years. 12 years later, they come back and Hulk Hogan's back, and he puts on an incredible sequel. That match against Warrior was maybe the greatest of his career, but this might be the greatest performance of his career as he thoroughly, thoroughly outworks The Rock here in Toronto.
The fascinating thing about this match is that they did not book this in Toronto with Hulk Hogan in mind. Uh,
No,
they booked it well in advance. They do them like a year in advance at least,
yeah.
especially during this era. The problem is, if you put this shit in Florida, I don't think you get this reaction. None of this happens. The babyface Hulk Hogan turn, maybe it never happens at all, or it
Hogan
happens
was
years down the road.
he was over everywhere they were going, but there
Not
was
like
something
this.
special. No, Canada's special here, and then I just a couple. He got a couple just unforgettable ovations in Montreal in the couple months after this. Um,
Yeah, but
the
I
one
mean,
the one on SmackDown where he's trying to do his promo and like the crowd just won't stop cheering, and it like goes all the way through the commercial. It must have gone for 10 minutes. It's like nothing
and
I've
he's
ever
just like
seen
crying in
before. Yeah.
disbelief. Like he's just like,
He perfected that. Like, wow, I can't believe this face.
yeah. And that's all a very bittersweet now. Like, it's impossible to really talk about this without bringing up the fact that we now know that Hulk Hogan is a horrific human being
You
and is
know,
not the hero of our childhood.
was he ever really though?
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the problem is that like the unabashed love and appreciation for him is unbelievable. And when I was a kid, like I was riding the Hulk Hogan's back Hulkamania lives forever train real hard during this era.
Yeah. So the thing for me is, I mean, I was too young for the Hogan era, so I was never a Hulkamaniac. Like I knew about like the red and yellow, and that Hogan had been a baby face and main evented all the original WrestleManias, but I hadn't really seen any of it because this is 2002. There's no YouTube. There's no WWE Network. Like the only place you can see the stuff is on like videotapes that aren't necessarily easy to find. So hadn't really been exposed to the Hogan era. The Hogan I knew was Hollywood Hogan, the NWO, which is my favorite stable of all time. So the NWO coming to WWE was about the most excited I could get for something. I mean, in this year, they've had so many they've had ups and downs in the year since WrestleMania 17, but it's mostly downs. Like just about everything they tried didn't work. The Steve Austin heel turn didn't work. The two-man power trip didn't work. Triple H blew his quad out. They tried to push Benoit and Jericho into the main event. Didn't work. Benoit broke his neck. They had to hot shot the invasion. Didn't work at all. Totally bombed. So as they were coming to the end of the invasion, there was a question of like, what the hell are they going to do next? I'm sure their original thought was the invasion will at least get us to WrestleMania. Like we'll at least be able to go all the way to WrestleMania with this. And instead it was so bad they had to wrap it up in the fall at Survivor Series. But the glimmer of hope was you started to hear the buzz that they're talking with Hogan and Hall and Nash, and they're trying to get the NWO, which was not something that I think was originally on the agenda, but after the invasion had bombed, they needed a new spark, and who better than the NWO to provide it?
It's a run of failure that may be unmatched by anyone other than TNA in the history of professional wrestling. We're talking about like 10 of the biggest possible storylines you could do, stretching all the way from the very first one with Austin's heel turn, stretching all the way to, I don't know, the burial of Goldberg or Lesnar leaving or something like that. Like in like a 2-year span, they blow through what could have been 10 years of WrestleMania level storylines, and they all bomb. Like we've talked about many reasons why the ratings decline, and they're not all because of the performance of the product itself, but like just to tune in and just see amazing thing after amazing thing come and suck and then go. It's amazing.
It's just such a continuous run of they're going to bring in somebody from WCW and we're going to get super excited by it, and then it sucks. You know, whether it's the original invasion with Booker T and DDP, Hogan, Hall, and Nash,
Fucking Scott Steiner. Oh my God.
Goldberg. Like each one of these, they set it up and they just blow it, and they completely run it into the ground. Like you said, it's a remarkable run of failure we see from this company in the next few years. Every big storyline they try to do bombs.
And like the reverberations of those failures echo throughout to this day, really, because they have so many stars at their disposal and they burn through them all so fast that like 3 years from now, they'll have no stars and they'll have to build them from scratch. And it never really feels like they got back to the point of having more than like 2 stars at any given time. Here they have like 10 household names.
Yeah. And within 2 years, they're all going to be gone. But I mean, there's also Steve Austin's neck problems, not their fault.
Right.
The Rock becoming a huge Hollywood movie star, not their fault. Hard to see that one coming. It hadn't really ever happened before.
Triple H wanting to cosplay as Ric Flair. They could have seen that one coming.
Yeah. Brock Lesnar just not liking travel and not, being willing to do a WWE schedule. Hard to see that one coming.
Though he did tell them that openly, often. They just didn't believe him.
They weren't willing to accommodate his desire to work a part-time schedule back then.
Yeah. And everybody.
Kurt Angle, similarly, Kurt Angle's neck problems. Just stuff happens, and they do catch in addition to a lot of self-inflicted wounds, they catch a lot of bad breaks in these years.
Yeah, it's not that they couldn't have still succeeded. It's that because of all the bad decisions that they made, their margin for error got so much smaller than it needed to be, and then they failed that. Like they they still had an opportunity to succeed. Like if Jericho gets over as a heel, or maybe Angle, they push him in the right way, or
And it
Edge
kind of
doesn't
feels
get
like they
hurt.
only really needed to hit on one of these things, and somehow they couldn't hit any of them until finally Cena and Batista in 2005.
The biggest what if in this era, and I don't even think that people really realize what a big what if this is, but if Edge doesn't get hurt at that pivotal moment when they need somebody to step up, the answer is Edge. He has been gently prodded forward and held up, like this is the next king of WWE, our homegrown star from Toronto who loved Hulkamania, and here he'll wrestle with Hogan, and here he'll slowly get built up through the tag ranks in the Intercontinental until he's just about ready, and then he'll be the guy.
And for some reason on this show in his hometown of Toronto, he'll wrestle Booker T in a 6-minute match.
For a shampoo commercial.
Yes.
But literally, we're on the cusp of him becoming a next level star. Yeah, but then there's so many people in his way that he can't get there. And then when they all go, literally in that moment, he gets hurt for a year and he misses the whole opportunity. It's one of the biggest what ifs because he was that guy.
Oh yeah, he's ready. He's ready for the ball at this point, I think.
Oh God, yeah.
And yeah, he gets hurt at the worst possible time, and then when he comes back, his face push just doesn't click, and it takes the heel turn. Yeah, exactly. It's just stuff. It was just lazy, sloppy booking, and it took the heel turn and really the lead of Matt Hardy stuff for him to actually get over as a heel.
Yeah, but they blow it with him hard, and it's not entirely their fault, but he was their safety. You know what I mean? If all else fails, we have the future over here in Edge, and then that goes away, and it's oh no, oh no.
So to kind of catch up, broad strokes, the invasion has come and gone. The invasion has flopped. It ended at Survivor Series 2001. You can go back and listen to that one in the archives. I think that's one of our most fun shows. We also covered Vengeance 2001, which is the month after Survivor Series. That's the night they unified the world titles, and to the shock of literally everyone, Chris Jericho walked away from that show as the unified world champion, winning both the WCW and WWF titles in the same night. We, I think, said back then when we watched that we felt like it should have been Kurt Angle, and those feelings to me were very much, it had never clicked into my head how perfect it would have been to be doing Kurt and Triple H here with Stephanie in the middle. That you've got all that history of that love triangle and how much heat you could have had if Kurt is the champion and he steals Stephanie from Triple H.
Because this is the version of the love triangle that they wanted to do before, but they were both heels. This is perfect, right?
Yes.
The attraction between Kurt and Stephanie has literally been established from Kurt's first week in the company. It's been a running through line the entire time. But it's not even just the Triple H storyline. Kurt has almost had that moment at SummerSlam. He had that moment at home after 9/11 in Pittsburgh. But the crowd already sees him as being on that level to some extent. And then to have him finally get his win over The Rock, because The Rock would always job him out in title matches. If you take the exact Chris Jericho push and put Kurt Angle in that spot instead, it works better. Yeah. And it probably draws better.
Well, and to me, we'll cover it more, but I think the issue we run into with this Triple H Jericho feud is there's just not a lot of heat on it because Triple H dumped Stephanie, and there's no reason for him to be mad that her and also the fact that her and Jericho aren't romantic, that they're just platonic business partners and whatever, that she's just managing him instead of being his girlfriend.
But
they
also
weren't willing to go all the way with that.
But on some level, even if they had done that, it wouldn't have felt right because these two people hate each other. Always hate. I know that you can
hate and love. Around. It's kind of the same thing, isn't it?
But it's not that kind of hate, really. He calls her a filthy, disgusting, brutal, bottom-feeding trash bag hoe on every fucking show.
Because he was mad she wouldn't date him.
I guess, but that
this works if you understand Chris Jericho's character as a kindergartner.
That really is the case. If you go back and watch this era and realize that he and The Rock are both just 5 years old, it makes way more sense.
So Triple H made his big return to WWF TV on Raw from Madison Square Garden on January 7th. It's a moment that's been replayed a million times, but rewatched it in anticipation of this. And every time I watch I'm blown away by how big the reaction was. It's legitimately one of the loudest pops I've ever heard. And it's a sustained roar. And there's stages to it. There's the pop when his music hits. There's the huge pop when he comes out on the stage. And it keeps going when he does the water spit and the pose. And it doesn't stop. It's an incredible reaction for a guy who had been a heel for years before this. But crowd was ready to cheer him at this point. He's a conquering hero.
I get genuinely choked up thinking about it. Because he said in interviews before, like, he was backstage behind the curtain, like, I wonder if they're going to make any noise. Because he had been a heel. He had been, like, the most vile, disgusting, horrible heel his entire career. Yeah. And, like, he had left for so long. And, like, all this shit had happened. Like, literally, the entire, like, landscape of professional wrestling had changed wildly.
It's a different company now. Yeah, that he comes back to. It is a very different place. But, yeah. His music hits and it sounds like a jet engine is taking off.
Because, like, it's like, after all the failure and bullshit of the past 6 months, here's something we know is cool. Like, here's something we know is good and doesn't suck. This is bring us back to the good times.
So, yeah, Triple H announced he would enter the Royal Rumble and that he was going to win. He made good on that promise. He won the Royal Rumble, last eliminating Kurt Angle.
Or Kurt Angle.
Yeah. On that same night, Jericho beat The Rock to retain the WWF title, and Ric Flair beat Vince McMahon in a street fight, setting off a kayfabe series of events that would shake the company to its foundations.
Yeah.
So McMahon in storyline is despondent after losing this match to Flair. I think he came out to do his promo on Raw, and it was one of those where, like, he couldn't even speak. He was so upset, and he just walked away. And then on SmackDown, they do this brilliant series of promos where it's just in real tight on Vince's face, and he doesn't know what to do. He can't stand sharing his company with Ric Flair. Ric Flair is going to destroy the WWF. He's going to put it out of business. Vince can't stand to see that happen. So he's going to be the one who kills it. What's he going to do?
With a lethal dose of poison.
Him. And the N.
And the NWO.
And this is where we realize he's been talking in a mirror, and he turns his chair around, and it's got the NWO symbol on the back.
As a self-professed cinematography dork, like, these, like, there are a couple of things in wrestling history that, like, and I'm sure this is all Kevin Dunn. So, like, I've paid so much attention to Kevin Dunn's work through the years, arguably second only to Jim Cornette and the number of people who pay attention specifically to what Kevin Dunn does. Sometimes he, like, settles into this genius shit. And this is one of those moments where, like, him spinning the chair around and it saying NWO on the back, like, I remember, again, like, if you're new to our podcast, I did not watch WCW, had never seen a single segment of the NWO in my life. Wow. Not one. But when I saw those letters on the back of the chair, I, like, freaked the fuck out. Like, what?
Yeah. So we're coming at this from very different perspectives, because I was a big WCW fan, NWO super fan. Just NWO is my favorite thing in wrestling history. So for me in that moment, and the thing, either I didn't read the SmackDown spoilers that week, or maybe this wasn't in the spoilers. They may not have shown these segments in the arena, which would have been very smart to not do, to not have this get out there, that this had happened on SmackDown. But yeah, I was watching this show live and had no idea this was going to happen, and just, like, lost my shit when he did the big reveal, because I don't think I was on the internet, but I don't remember, like, it being a sure thing that I had read by that point that, like, Hall and Nash and Hogan are coming in. I had heard the rumors, but, like, you know, I was reading the sites. I wasn't subscribed to the Wrestling Observer or anything, so I wasn't as far into the news at that point. So I had not treated it as a sure thing that these guys were coming in, and this reveal was huge.
And it had kind of been floated around the internet that like WCW guys were done coming in. Vince was done with that.
Yeah.
He was just like, oh, it didn't work, fuck it. And like that, all the guys who are still under contract were just happy to work out their contracts, and like you wouldn't see anybody for like 2 more years. Like that's kind of the way that they presented it.
Yeah.
So when this happened, and like only knowing like vaguely just through reading like wrestling magazines who the NWO was, but this felt apocalyptic.
Yeah.
It was just like, oh no, the NWO is coming. We're about to relive the WCW NWO feud here.
This
like,
is the chance to redo the invasion and do it right. Like now the problem with the invasion was you didn't have the stars and you didn't book WCW strongly. Well, now you've got the stars, and like of course you're going to book the NWO strong. Like it's the most invincible stable in history.
These 3 men alone are a more credible invasion than like 20 mid-carders.
And that was my other thing was, is it just going to be the 3 or could there be more? Like, are they eventually going to bring in, Pac? Are they going to bring in Scott Steiner? Is Big Show going to join up? Like, who else could be in the NWO?
Where's Buff Bagwell? When do we get Buff Bagwell?
That was the question. That was the question on my mind. When is Buff the Stuff coming back?
Where's Virgil? Where's he at?
Soul Train. The next week on Raw, this is another great moment. When Flair shows the history of the WWF package, that in storyline is trying to persuade Vince not to destroy the company. I've heard Vince was moved to tears watching this, and I can totally understand it. I mean, it brings out feelings in me, even though I didn't live through the eras it's highlighting. But yeah, seeing all the old timers and all that old footage, and it's just them reconnected. I think for me, just symbolically, they're reconnecting to their past that they had really kind of abandoned the past during the Attitude Era because they were living in the moment, and also because most of the top guys from their past were all with WCW or otherwise on bad terms with the company. Like the foundations of their company, Bruno Sammartino, Hulk Hogan, Ultimate Warrior, Randy Savage, Roddy Piper, none of those guys are around. Like those guys are all persona non grata at this point. Like from about 95 on, that doesn't exist. Now that they've won the war, they can bring the past back.
As somebody who had been watching since the very early 90s, and obviously I wasn't watching when Bruno Sammartino was around, but the Hogan era had felt disconnected from the rest of WWE from 95 on. It just felt like that never even happened, or that's a whole different fucking company era. It felt like it could never be connected again. And so when they did start doing that stuff, it really felt like the company became whole for the first time ever. It's just all of this. This is the one magical moment that them buying WCW and ECW and everybody gave us. Is realistically this one Kid Rock themed video.
The Kid Rock song was perfect though.
Yeah, I know. I just think it's so funny that Vince McMahon was brought to tears while listening to Kid Rock. That's a funnier way to put it. But this is a beautiful video. And there's so many moments in it, Randy Savage twirling around, and then it's Shawn Michaels, and then it's Kurt Angle. It's a special
bridge to the
torch.
Past.
And then oh yeah.
And that's something else that now that I think about it that stands out about these WrestleManias is the way that it is the reconnection to the past, kind of culminating with them bringing back the Hall of Fame at WrestleMania 20 at the Garden and induct in so many guys into the Hall of Fame, and it's so good to see them start acknowledging the past more, acknowledging the history of their company and of wrestling as a whole, because they're no longer bound by, we can only talk about our history. Now they own all of professional wrestling.
That's the interesting thing, is that Vince McMahon sort of becomes the steward of professional wrestling history after this, and he treats it in a more honorable way than you would kind of expect him to. It clearly means something to Vince that Bruno Sammartino wrestled for his father's company. It means something to Vince that like you can connect Andre the Giant versus Hulk Hogan to Austin versus The Rock. Like as much as people have said throughout history that Vince McMahon doesn't really give a shit about wrestling, clearly this matters to him. And like it was a big, like you can almost imagine the seeds of the Hall of Fame literally being planted as he watches that video.
I mean, and I think the thing that moves him so much is his dad.
Yeah, exactly.
As complicated a relationship as that is, like he has some very strong loving feelings for his father. Like, those are the only times I feel like we've ever seen him get emotional are when he talks about his dad.
And I feel like the one thing he can be definitively sure his dad would have been proud of him for is beating WCW and making the industry whole. Like the whole industry under his dad's banner.
Yeah.
I finally beat the NWA, Pop, just like you always wanted.
So how big is it that they're getting Hogan, Hall, and Nash? I think any of the three, like obviously the pecking order goes Hogan, Nash, Hall, but even just Scott Hall coming in would have been a big deal.
What if
to get
Scott
all three of them at the same time?
What if Scott Hall comes back as Razor? Is that a big deal?
Yes! Holy shit, would that have been huge? Of all the things we were robbed of, the fact that we never got a Razor Ramon Royal Rumble surprise entrance breaks my heart.
I've fantasy booked this a million times, and like there was no version of this that wasn't going to be the NWO because that name is even kind of bigger than Hogan. Like you've got to bring that in and try to do that, right? At least that's what they thought at the time, because at the time it seemed that way. They didn't know what is in retrospect obvious, which is that their fans had been waiting for Hogan to come home. I mean, I could have told you that because I was one of those fans. I didn't follow Hollywood Hogan. I didn't give a fuck about Hollywood Hogan. I wanted red and yellow. I wanted Hulk. I wanted to be a Hulkamaniac again. I wanted my hero from my childhood back.
Yeah. Well, the irony is, I mean, Hogan had not really been over in WCW for the last couple of years. Like he'd had a bad, really 98 on had been rough for him. But at this point, he'd been off the scene for long enough, and it's so special for him to come home. And it's something we weren't sure. If you went back to like 1997, 1998, I mean, WCW was the place to be. The WWF was Bush League in comparison.
Yeah.
You probably wouldn't have thought he was ever going to come back to the WWF. You would have thought he's just going to finish out his career in WCW because that's where the money is.
Oh, yeah. And like WWE had buried him to such an extent and like had just, I cannot say this enough. This would be like if Sting left WCW and went to WWE. No, it would be more than that. It would be like if Flair left WCW and went to WWE and they just broke the company's history into two parts. The part with Flair we don't talk about, and now. Like, it's just literally they disconnected the history of the company from each other to avoid talking about him.
Like, at WrestleMania 10, they did all those highlights of the first 10 WrestleManias, and I'm pretty sure they didn't show Hogan at all.
No, they couldn't. It was just
like, remember WrestleMania 1 with Liberace?
Oh, man, you remember Tatanka?
Yeah. What else happened at that WrestleMania? I don't remember. But yeah, this should be something that reignites the WWF. Like, this should be the start of another boom. And instead, it ends up being pretty much a disaster.
Like, it winds up Hogan getting over to the extent that he does, steamrolls Triple H's babyface run, and then it doesn't last as long as they think it's going to, so they got to bury that.
Hall is a mess. He was having serious problems with his drinking, and he should not have been on TV. Nash turned out was made of glass and couldn't wrestle a match without getting hurt.
Well, he also hadn't really wrestled a match in 2 years. Like, he wasn't really doing matches at that point. And a lot of these WCW guys, they sign them, and like, they understand now that if you're bringing in a guy, they're so good at this now. They're like, okay, Edge is going to come back in the Royal Rumble. Cool. All right, we'll send him a ring secretly, and he can start working out and getting the ring rust off in secret.
We're
like
gonna
months
we're
before.
gonna set them up like in an apartment, in Orlando, and they can work out at the performance center every day for 3 months
Yeah,
to
he
knock
and
the
all
ring
the
rust
people that
off
he's
and get
going to
back in
work
ring
with.
shape.
Yeah,
Yeah,
he and Orton can just go down there and mix it up. Yeah.
that infrastructure does not exist at this point. They're
No, it's
not.
like,
Hogan's not going to OVW to work matches for Cornette.
can you imagine? Brother, I'm really not thinking I'm going to wrestle the Boogeyman tonight.
Boogeyman's fucking over. Not even Santino Marella sold for the Boogeyman.
Oh my God. Yeah, so like these guys, and like the worst obvious example of this is Steiner, because when Steiner comes in, he hasn't been on a treadmill in 3 years. Like he
Yeah.
blows up 30 seconds into his match.
So, I mean, how would you have brought them in? Like, what would have been your thought? I mean, my thought is, as much as I loved the Vince thing, I might have done it as a surprise. Like, I might have just had him. Like, what if they just showed up at the Royal Rumble and wreaked havoc and like messed up the match and like threw everybody out and there was no winner at the Royal Rumble because the NWO destroyed everything?
Yeah, like the last three in the Rumble are like The Rock, Triple H, and Austin, and then the NWO comes in and just lays fucking waste to them.
Yeah. And like they tear ringside apart, they spray paint NWO in the ring, like the whole thing. They fuck with the announcers, like basically the Nexus debut, where like they literally destroy the show.
That would be rad. And then there's just no winner, and it's just
Yeah.
like, well, fuck, what do we do? Okay, there's a hype. Here's the thing: is we've gotta. It's so easy to, in retrospect, put together what could have happened. But if you put yourself in their shoes, there's only two conceivable directions you could be going here, right? You're either going to The Rock versus Hulk Hogan, or you're
Yeah.
going to some sort of multi-man NWO versus WWE match. Like, if this is going to, like, Rock, Austin, and Triple H versus the NWO, okay.
That's pretty cool.
That probably could have main evented this show. It probably should
Yeah.
have main evented this show, honestly.
That would have taken a lot of the pressure off each of the individual guys to perform. That if it's the three of them in a tag match instead.
And like you can like deal with like all the issues between Rock, Triple H, and Austin
Yeah.
because they're all baby faces, but they don't get
But they don't
along.
like
Like,
each other, and that's how the NWO can beat them because they're not united.
but this is the only time in WWE history all three guys are baby faces. It's literally the only time.
Yeah.
So you could have done it. And there's enough star power on the show that I think you could have. You didn't need everybody. You didn't need them in different matches on the card. That would have been. I understand the feeling that you can't do like a multi-man match at WrestleMania, but
Yeah.
that's one of the biggest matches of all time.
That's if you're gonna go all in on like this company is like in the same way they went all in on the invasion. If we're gonna make this is now about the NWO versus WCW. That's what you
Right.
could do. I mean, and the other thing you could do is you could give them more members. Like you can put some other people in the NWO. Like you can put X-Pac in there. You can put Big Show in there. If I dug through the recesses of my brain, I could find some other. Randy Savage is available. I mean, don't want to open up that can of worms why Savage is never welcomed back, but like he's out there and could be part of this. There's plenty of other people. If you want to give them more than just the three guys, you can make this an even bigger thing.
Let's say the entire disenfranchised failed invasion is just sitting there waiting for direction.
Bischoff
Like,
is out there. That had to be an option. Should we bring in Bischoff to manage them?
here's the problem though, okay? Like we're gonna do a
Bischoff
lot
comes
of
in like 2 months after this.
yeah, there's a lot of fantasy booking on this, and Bischoff definitely would have helped. But it wouldn't have worked is the important thing to
Hogan's always
realize.
going to be a babyface here.
Because here's the thing: if Hulk Hogan stands across from The Rock, Stone Cold, and Triple H and gets cheered, that's a disaster. Like to him just do it with The Rock, it's okay. The fans had already started to turn on The Rock. They were ready for the heel turn. This
I guess we need to address what about Austin versus Hogan? That's the biggest match. That's a bigger match than Rock and Austin or than Rock and Hogan to me because Austin was bigger than The Rock.
I guess that like literally
I
the
understand why they
tagline.
did. I think there's good reasons not to do it though. But
The
go ahead.
tagline for this show is the absolute best ever, Hogan versus Rock. How pissed off do you think Steve Austin was that Rock, and I'm sure like
I don't
there's
think
a
he
lot of
was.
cultivating.
What I've heard, and I think I've heard him say it, he didn't want to work with Hogan. Like he didn't like Hogan, didn't trust him, didn't think they could have a good match. And he's right. Like I think that match would have kind of sucked.
It would have
Like
sucked ass.
Austin's not in a good spot. Like
He
either
can't
his
bump right
mental
now.
or physical health at this point. Like his match with Hall was pretty much ass, and Scott Hall, like even messed up Scott Hall is still a damn good worker, and you would expect him and Steve Austin to have a good match, but they don't.
No. It's just the multi-man match would have protected a ton of stuff, but at the end of the day, like this is going to be all about Hogan no matter what.
Yeah, that
And they
just doesn't.
realized that on the way
Six-man
in.
tag just doesn't feel big enough. And the other problem is, what are the stakes? Like you
Yeah.
have to have something on the line there, and I don't know what it would be.
Loser leaves WWE now.
I mean, like if the NWO wins, they take over Raw. Like I don't know, how does that work? And they,
Yeah, we floated that a million times. It's not going to happen.
yeah. So how they actually returned was in a backstage segment on Heat before No Way Out. They did a
On a
couple.
backstage segment on Heat.
They chatted up the Rock backstage. They asked, "Oh, can we take a picture?" And then Rock insulted them, and they insulted him. They ran into Austin, and I don't remember something about having a beer. So yeah, they're just doing teases. They may have done a tease with Triple H too here. I don't remember for sure, but then they come out to start the pay-per-view with a promo, get a monster reaction from the crowd. Like the crowd is hot for all of them. They are by far the hottest for Hogan.
It's literally not even close. Like they are wildly hot for Hogan. Like to the point where like The Rock is so surprised. And like all throughout the whole thing, like you can tell that The Rock's just like, what the fuck's
What?
going on?
Yeah. Um, as an aside, how do you feel about the black and white the screen going black and white for their entrance?
I geek out for it every single time.
It feels so. I love the way the disrupt because the NWO was all about disruption, and here it's disruptive to the show.
Now, I'm going to say something that I don't think I've ever said on the podcast before, but I am colorblind. Like I'm black-white colorblind, so I literally
I
can't
didn't
see
even
color.
know that.
Yeah. So it's not a big deal, but so like in certain cases, like when it would go like black and white, I'd be like, wait, something's wrong. What is it? But it's really in the same way that the DX thing where they would like do the DX video over top of the entrance, like it makes you look special that it looks different when you're on TV. You know what I mean? Like you're affecting literally what we're seeing. That's very cool.
In the sub-main event, Kurt Angle beat Triple H to win his WrestleMania title shot. That was a shocker, but it was just a swerve. Triple H won it back the next night on Raw.
Yep.
Poor Kurt.
Oh, Kurt.
Gets the honor of working with Kane at this WrestleMania.
Yeah, I can't wait to get to that bullshit.
In the main event, Jericho retained the title over Austin after the NWO interfered and attacked Austin.
One
They
of the
beat Austin
all-time
up.
shitty
Oh, that
matches.
match was so bad. God, Austin was on a terrible stretch, which is amazing because he was so on fire in 2001 with his work. Like the match with Rock, the matches with Angle, Benoit, and Jericho. He was having great matches. And then it's like he turned face and like had forgotten how to wrestle.
And Jericho also said that like they had like negative 1,000 chemistry. Some guys just don't have chemistry together. They
Jericho
had
has bad chemistry with a lot of people, if we're being honest.
almost everyone.
Yeah. Who does he work well with?
Rey
Benoit.
Mysterio.
Mysterio, yeah.
Weirdly, it's either guys like way smaller than him or way bigger than him. Like he does not work well with like his matches with like Eddie Guerrero were never very good. His match with X-Pac was terrible.
Yeah, you can't have a good match with X-Pac.
Like people always thought that Jericho was like a worker in like the vein of Benoit, and that's never what he was. He spent his whole career like trapped in that idea, having terrible matches.
I mean, I've always been like Chris Jericho, great character, good enough wrestler, like had his moments of greatness, but yeah, I've never considered him somebody who was amazing in the ring.
Yeah, just because he rubbed elbows with all those amazing workers in the cruiserweight division during the time, he wasn't really one of them. He was just also small.
Um, so that set up Jericho versus Triple H for the undisputed title in the main event. Jericho is backed up by Triple H's soon-to-be ex-wife Stephanie. I recall a very ridiculous segment on Raw where Triple H and Stephanie are supposed to renew their wedding vows. And then Triple H finds out that Stephanie has lied about being pregnant, like hired an actor as a doc to play a doctor and tell Triple H she was pregnant. And I think it
Linda
was
McMahon tells
Linda
him
was
that.
the snitch. Yeah, Linda
Yeah.
ratted on Stephanie.
My
And
God.
Triple H like destroys the like ceremony, like smashes all the stuff and the flowers, and hits Vince with the pedigree, and like tells Stephanie he wants a divorce.
And then we get that iconic image of Stephanie in the wedding dress, like literally like roaring at the camera.
Yeah, that was, I mean, it was what it was all. You know, somebody just had that image of like Stephanie in a wedding dress, like wailing on the ground, and that's where this all came from.
Ooh, I think it would be pretty hot if Stephanie was in a wedding dress. And
That Hogan pitching that?
you know what? I was trying to do a Vince, but now that I think about it, I'm just
Well, brother.
Hey, brother, me and Randy were talking,
Wow,
and we thought it'd be pretty hot.
She's really grown up. Haven't seen her in a while, dude.
Oh my God.
It's about the same age as my daughter now.
Jesus Christ, no. Oh my God. My impressions are terrible.
This Triple H Jericho feud is just legendarily bad. I think everybody remembers the lowlights. Like Jericho having to walk their dog and accidentally killing the dog.
Yeah, he tied it up to a limo and they backed over the dog.
Which is like the most heelish thing ever, and it's kind of treated as a joke.
Him having to clean up dog poop. Triple H being like really obsessed with his tiny dog, which is actually kind of endearing.
Is actually human. Triple H constantly dragging Stephanie for having a large vagina.
God, yeah, this was just miserable because it felt like Triple H had already won the feud. Like the wedding was the feud ender. She got her comeuppance. He got what he wanted. And then it's just a long, miserable divorce proceeding. Like, if you told me that Brian Gewirtz had gone through a divorce,
it does feel like, yeah, somebody was playing out their revenge fantasy on screen for us.
It literally is just like, oh, my fucking ex-wife and her new boyfriend, I'm gonna fucking kick their ass. It's like, it feels weird, and the fans don't connect to it at all. This is not the story that they want. This is not the Triple H that they wanted when he came back. Like, they wanted, like, ass-kicker Triple H, not divorce proceedings, the sad dad Triple H.
Yeah. This was just a swing and a miss. Just all around. Nothing about this clicked.
Again, I do think it would have helped if it had been Kurt.
Yeah.
Because the second that, like, Stephanie's like, I found a new man, and Kurt comes out, Triple H is livid because he knew all along that they were together.
She fucking lied to him.
And Kurt being like, you knew that she's always been into me, Triple H. She's always wanted to be with me.
I've got your belt, and I've got your woman.
I got your belt, I got your woman, I got your dog. I'm sleeping in your bed.
And now I'm going to run this company.
He should have just started calling himself The Game, Kurt Angle.
Yeah, like, I see all the potential in the world with that. Like, I think that would have had heat.
And even the comedy segments, if you insist on doing that, Kurt he would have done a better job.
Yeah, like Kurt having to watch the dog, like I don't know, Kurt having to give Triple H back his closet full of leather jackets. Like, there's humor to be mined here. Like, Kurt at the McMahon estate, like, being a goofball, like.
Yeah, even if it had to be comedy and that would have killed the heat, at least it would have been great TV.
Yeah. Kurt is like Vince's new son-in-law. Like, there's humor to be found here.
I feel like that's a role that Kurt could have knocked out of the park. Is like
Yeah. The Meet the Parents.
the
Yeah.
new McMahon. Change his name to Kurt
Kurt
McMahon.
McMahon. Kurt McMahon angle. um, so yeah, that's our main event. They shouldn't have put it on last, but they got in their own heads about the title match having to go on last, and it's a mistake they would repeat several times over the years, always involving Triple H, surprisingly enough.
This was attributed to Triple H that he fought hard for this. I'm sure he wasn't the only one because I
It's a
also think
traditionalist thing, the world title, and I'm an advocate of protecting the title, but I tend to do the opposite. I look at it from the perspective of let's figure out what our biggest match is and let's get the world title involved in that.
yeah, and I think it protects the title that if it's not the biggest match, put it lower on the card. Like you can still make it important. That's why they started putting title matches on first, and I think that's fine.
Yeah.
Like it's still important. That's great.
Hot start to the show.
But like in a case like this, like the title gets buried because who gives a shit?
I'm surprised more people didn't leave.
This title doesn't mean shit until the Undertaker gets a hold of it. Like literally, it's like not even a thing.
So as we said, the other big choice they're making is it Rock or is it Austin who's going up against Hogan? They choose Rock. I know everybody wanted to see Austin and Hogan. I don't think this would have been a good time to do it. I don't think Austin was in the right place as a character or like as a person at this point to have that kind of match.
I also think it's just fair to say that like as a household name, The Rock had surpassed him. Like now he's a movie star. Like
Yeah, Austin has cooled off a lot from the
yeah.
like his pop. I mean, when he comes out, it is so noticeable. A year before this at WrestleMania 17, like he was a god coming out in Houston. Of course, it's Houston. It's his home state. But just I will never forget the camera flashes as he's doing his posing in the corner. And this time when he comes out, it just doesn't feel like anything special.
And The Rock and Hogan also feel like the same kind of character, right?
Very
Like
much.
all promos, all charisma. Like that's like The Rock kind of feels like the new Hogan in a way that Austin doesn't.
No,
You know what I
Austin
mean?
is entirely his own thing. But I mean, that's not to say I think I would have loved to see Austin and Hogan.
Oh
It's a
God, yeah.
great shame. It's a great shame that we never got Austin versus Hogan.
It really is.
Would have loved to see that clash of characters and styles at some point, but I don't think this was the right time. I think it was the right call to do The Rock. And like, although the other thing is, Austin would have loved if he had gotten to work heel against Hogan because Austin always wanted to work heel.
This is the match he asked for years. Just the opportunity to do this with Hogan. I honestly, if I'm really thinking about it, I don't think it's so much that Austin didn't trust Hogan. I bet you Hogan didn't trust Austin. Because Hogan knows that Austin doesn't like him. And like, I'm not letting this guy eat me alive. No, no, no.
That's probably fair. So the way they set it up, the night after No Way Out on Raw, Hogan comes out and does a promo where he shits on the fans, says they abandoned him, turned on him, blah, blah, blah. Rock interrupts him, cuts a promo, says, you abandoned the fans, you turned on them, you're such a legend, you've headlined so many more WrestleManias. How about headlining one more with
The Rock?
This promo is so money. And just the way they look at each other, and they look at the crowd, and they look at each other, and they look at the crowd, and the crowd is truly electric.
They've tried to replicate this so many times, and it's impossible.
Oh, you mean it's not the same thing when Cena and Orton did this?
Oh, that was embarrassing. The crowd did not even fucking respond. But like this moment, and The Rock, there are a lot of valid criticisms to make about The Rock's promos over the years. Most of them are mailed in garbage. Let's just be perfectly honest here. This is maybe his best promo ever. Like it's very simple and to the point. Like just the moment where he goes, how about you main event one more with The Rock? And he goes like straight face to face with Hogan. And like The Rock's a little bit bigger. He's younger. Like Hogan kind of looks a little older and like sunken down, but like just the moment where they lock eyes and you're like, I didn't even realize I wanted this until right now.
That's the beauty of a great promo. And then Hogan accepts the challenge, says, "Good luck. You're going to need it, brother." Rock, "Not as much as you, brother." And nails him with the rock bottom.
And the sad thing is that there were still like 3 weeks to go till Mania, because that should have been the go home, but it can't be.
There's like a fucking year left in this segment, though, because it's only just getting started. Rock goes to leave, but Hall and Nash cut him off. They beat him up. They hit him with a hammer.
They pull out a toolbox, get a hammer, and hit him with it.
And then, after the commercial, they're loading Rock into the ambulance. Hall and Nash and Hogan attack the EMTs, lock the ambulance with chains. Hogan gets a semi-truck, says he's going to lay the smackdown on his candy ass, and then rams the ambulance with the semi-truck.
This is one of the stupidest segments in wrestling history.
What? Why did they feel like that? I mean, why? Why? It's such a great promo, and then this garbage.
You literally get one of the most iconic promos of all time, and then they spend 20 minutes making you forget that it ever happened. Yeah. First of all, the using the hammer to the back of the head, they murdered The Rock.
Yeah.
You watched a live snuff film of them killing Dwayne Johnson.
This is also, and it's also just this is the kind of thing you do to somebody, and then they're out for 6 months selling this. Rock was back a week later. Because they
barely referenced it.
He's only a month away. Yeah, because it was fucking stupid. They just forgot about it right away, which was good. I will never get on a company for just dropping something. If AEW would just drop the Dark Order, I would never complain that happened.
Yeah, you tried it, it failed, move on.
Yeah,
One of the all-time heinous things that Bruce Pritchard has ever done on Something to Wrestle is try to defend this fucking bullshit truck segment, which obviously all the producers had such big erections for. Ooh, we're gonna get a semi, he's gonna crash into the truck.
Cool. It's such a technical achievement.
Hogan had just in the ring basically turned tweener, and now he's committing vehicular homicide. Why? What are you
doing? They were just desperate to get him heat, so let's have him do the worst thing he can do. And they loved vehicle segments and prop. I mean, we'll get into all the shit they did with Austin and Hall here, but they were obsessed with props in this era. Just every week we had to have a car angle, hit somebody with a car.
And it just seems incredible that in this era, when they have so much more money and so many more people working on it, in the Attitude Era, they do all of these ridiculous stunts, and they all go off without a hitch, except for one, noticeably. But all of these monster truck spots and Zamboni spots and all this shit, they get so lucky that they all go so well. And here in this era, when they have a million technicians working on everything,
they blow it every time. Angle.
Yes.
The car just slowly backed into his car.
Goldberg getting in his own car
and trying to start it.
He can't start it.
Oh, they did. There was one a couple weeks after this where it was a couple months after this with Hogan and The Undertaker, where Hogan is supposed to ride his bike into the back, and it's leading to a pre-tape of Hogan riding his bike around in the back, but he can't. The bike is stalled. They flooded it, so he can't move it on the ramp. So they just have to go with a continuity error and cut to Hogan riding it in the back.
That was my favorite one because he gets off the bike and runs somewhere, and then the next shot is him on the bike.
Man, live TV. Oh, man.
It's just so funny that over preparation has made it so much worse than just doing it. Oh, we better start this car 150 times in a row to make sure it's good.
Flood that engine.
Oh, my God.
So that leaves Austin to wrestle Hall at WrestleMania, which is built with some incredibly silly angles. Including Austin using a net gun, which malfunctioned, and they had to fucking edit the segment to hell to make it something they could put on TV. Austin having a cinder block smashed on his knee. Austin locking Hall in a meat locker, which also he was pouring beer and shit on him. I don't know if anybody knew that Hall was taking what's the anti-drinking stuff?
I can't remember what it's
Antabuse?
called, but
I
literally
think it's
like you
called
throw up
Antabuse,
if you
but
have
yeah.
alcohol.
Yeah, even just smelling it makes you sick when you're on this stuff, and like Hall's having beer poured all over him.
Also, WWE knows about his substance abuse issues. Like
Yeah.
this is not a mystery,
So
and they
yeah, to
still do this.
this company, I mean, like, not only is this company heartless, like at times they're just like actively evil.
Well, like Scott Hall said in his shoot interview when he came in, like they were like, "All right, we'll do limited dates with you so you can like keep up with your rehab and keep up with your sponsor and all of that stuff. We won't put you on the road too much because that's where the temptation comes in. You'll always be with Kev. You don't have to worry about that." And they immediately go back on that. He's working like a full house show loop by himself
Because he's the
before
only one of these.
WrestleMania.
Hulk's not going to do house show matches, and like Nash is hurt, so he's the only one who can work. So right away, let's just run him in. Let's get what we can out of him.
And like as soon as WrestleMania is over, they're just like, "Yeah, we're gonna send you on the European tour without your friends." Like, what are you doing?
Yeah, like yeah, this probably wouldn't have worked at this point. This was probably not going to work anyway, even with the safety net in place. But they pulled the net right away.
It's just that's for as much good as they've done with the drug like program and like helping people get rehabilitated, they did him fucking dirty.
Yeah. So I mean, I mean, the NWO just gets made to look like fucking idiots by Austin here at every turn. Like
Yep.
net gun, just constantly being beaten up and outsmarted. Yeah, they got to mess The Rock up, but like beyond that, they are not booked strongly at all on the way in here.
There's no heat on the Austin match at all. Like
No,
not at all.
no. I just, yeah. And I don't know how to make it better. There's not really anybody for Austin to team with to make it a tag match against the
And the problem is
Outsiders.
that Angle
I think
or Austin has no friends.
no, there's nobody. Yeah, like
Maybe
no.
Taker if you hadn't turned him.
Taker's a heel though. Yeah, I mean some of the Taker and Nash would have been an interesting thing, but yeah, Taker's a heel. Austin and Foley have some history. I mean that if you had done Austin and Hogan, then I would think maybe you could do the Outsiders against the Rock and Sock connection and have Foley wrestle here, but didn't go that way.
No, there's just not. This card is so weird because when you look up and down it, like people don't match. Like there's a lot of mismatched parts. Like everybody's over, but they just don't. Like who's
No,
Edge supposed to face here? Who's Taker supposed to face here? Who's Kurt supposed to face? Who's Kane supposed to face? Like the answers they come
yeah,
up with suck, but
just
like there's not a lot of
nothing
better
quite
options.
matches up right.
Yeah.
So as we do, I mean Hull caused some problems WrestleMania weekend by drinking heavily. I've heard differing stories on whether the plan was for Hall to beat Austin, but I can believe that it was because like you kind of need to give the NWO a win here. Like Hogan isn't going to beat Rock, but like Hall beating Austin kind of makes sense, but not if Hall's such a mess they're going to have to fire him in a few weeks, which they end up doing.
I
Um,
also genuinely do think that we were getting to a multi-man match at some point. Like I think Austin Rock Triple H versus the NWO is something you can do at Backlash.
Yeah,
And it's
so
like,
on the Raw before WrestleMania, they did Austin and Rock against Hall and Nash and Hogan. And this is the only time Steve Austin and Hulk Hogan ever got in the ring together. And they just kind of tag in and have an uneventful exchange. And then Hogan tags out to Hall, and like that's it.
yeah, but like Triple H has nothing definitive coming out of this. You
Yeah.
add him to that, you get a one-off super special thing. Like it seems like that's where they're going because you have to get somebody over on the other side. But then the Hogan thing happens and they have Hall lose, and then so the MWO just kind of quietly
They're dead.
dies.
Oh, they're dead. I mean, they stick around for a few months after this, but it's over after this. The one thing maybe they could have done to reinvigorate it would have been put in Triple H in. If you do
Yeah,
Triple H and Hall and Nash and Pac and like it's the Click as the NWO, like that could have reinvigorated it. And I
from the
actually,
moment where it's yeah, from the moment where it's just Kevin Nash's stable, Kevin Nash and his buddies, they should have just started calling it the Click, honestly.
yeah. So I mean, I've heard Austin was under the impression he's going to lose to Hall. I think by that point they've changed their mind about that, but maybe they haven't told him yet. But he's furious that like Hall is out drinking and he's supposed to lose to him, and that is one of the big impetuses for Austin's first walkout, which happens after WrestleMania and lasts like 2 weeks. He doesn't show up for Raw the next night or the week after that.
Oh, and it only gets worse from there.
Yeah. I mean, the Hogan Rock match is the real main event. It's what's on the poster. It's the match people came to see. I don't know. What do you think they were expecting? I think they were expecting the crowd to maybe be split rather than like 90% for Hogan.
I think they were definitely expecting a split, and I think they expected to be like 70-30 Rock. Yeah. What it wound up being is 100% Hogan, 0 Rock.
Yeah, pretty much.
Like they boo the Rock on his way to the ring.
Yeah. By this point, I think they've already made the decision that they're turning him face, because I think it's either it's the night before WrestleMania they put him on Vince's plane and like had him fly down to Tampa to like get his red and yellow gear and like get some pictures like that they can use in video packages and that stuff.
Well, the night before is the Montreal one, right? Where like the first gigantic pop happened.
That's the night after. That's Raw the night after. It's either the night before, and I think it was the night before, or it's like right after WrestleMania. They're like, hey, we need you to get on the plane and like get down there, and you'll be back in time for Raw tomorrow. But like we need you to get your red and yellow gear.
How do you think Hogan felt about that? He had to feel good, right? Like, I can just do this again.
Oh yeah, I can just imagine this moment like after the match, like he goes through the curtain and he shakes hands to everybody and stuff, and then like I don't even know who this moment would be with. Maybe it's like Hall and Nash, but him just kind of seeing them and being like, yeah, I guess the old man still got it, right?
Just like that big shit-eating grin, like, yeah. Well, brother, looks like I'm still a big draw. You know, Toronto's always been a good town for me, brother.
Yeah. Again, I don't even know who that moment's with, but I'm sure it was with somebody.
Oh, yeah.
Maybe he called Beefcake when he got back to the hotel, but I'm sure he had a moment of gloating where he's like, yeah, they didn't see that one coming. But, you know, The Rock's pretty good. The kid's coming along. Maybe he'll get over someday.
He, like, walks by Flair like, man, you had a great match, brother. Sorry to steal your spotlight there with my match for the ages.
Yeah. I mean, a year later, Hollywood Rock will have surpassed Hogan as a performer. But yeah, like Hogan took The Rock to school on this night. I mean, he gets so much sympathy with his selling in this match. Like, you don't think of Hogan as a great seller, but he really was.
One of my favorite things about this match is that Hogan doesn't do anything that you would consider wrong. Like, he doesn't specifically go out of his way to bury The Rock. He doesn't no-sell for The Rock. In fact, he oversells for The Rock.
That's how he gets him.
The look of confusion on The Rock's face at various points where he's like, this motherfucker's stealing this match from me. It's like the look you see on the face of people who wrestled Shawn Michaels in the Attitude Era, like, this motherfucker.
Yeah. I mean, has this ever happened to The Rock?
No. The Rock in his sleep is more charismatic than everyone he's ever wrestled in his life, except for one, and it's this one.
Like, sure, when he wrestled Austin at WrestleMania in Texas, crowd was more behind Austin, but it was a split. Like,
and he was still very much the babyface. Like, he didn't change the way he wrestled very much.
No, and like Austin worked heel in that match because Austin was turning heel.
Yeah, here. That's the brilliance of this, though. Like, I don't know if they called this on the fly. In fact, I'm pretty sure that they did.
They do. Rock doesn't go as heel as I kind of remembered him doing. He does a couple heelish things, but he doesn't go all the way with it at all.
No, but like, just it's a smart audible to be like, hey, why don't we just edge it a little bit in this direction? Because every time they do, the crowd explodes. It's a masterclass of just like Rock, like halfway through being like, you know what? Like, he took it from me. I guess I just got to make this a great match. Fuck. All right, fine.
So one more thing before we finally get to the show. This was one of their first attempts to get Bret Hart back.
Oh.
With it being in Canada, it's kind of a natural fit. I don't know what they would have done with him here. The thing I've heard is like they were talking to him about refereeing the main event, which is a stupid ass idea.
God, that would have been a nightmare. Why?
Yeah. Like again, like it's already a weird dynamic with like Jericho and Triple H in Canada, and now you're gonna bring Montreal into it.
Well, what if he referees Rock and Hogan and he's the bridge between them?
I don't like that either.
I don't like it either. It doesn't need it.
No,
Well,
what this was the time for is this is when they should have brought the Hall of Fame back. And
yeah,
they should have
put him
inducted
in.
Brett. Like,
Yeah.
could have inducted Brett and like the whole fucking Hart family. Like, would have been perfect.
God, they should have put Owen in here, or just.
I mean, they could have done all Canadians here. They could have done Brett, Stu, like Neidhart and Bulldog aren't Canadian, but they're part of the Hart family. Like,
Hillman, like the whole fucking crew.
yeah, just do everybody here. Like, bring the Hall of Fame back. Do an all Canadian class. Can't think of who the other Canadians they would have done here are, but like they haven't done. There's like 10 people in the Hall of Fame at this point, so pretty much everybody's available.
Hart can't work a match at this point, right?
No more than he ever could. I'm not remember. I think he's recently had has he just had his stroke?
No, I think that had been like a year
I'm
before.
trying to remember exactly when the stroke was. I think the stroke may have been later.
Okay. Because like
Yeah,
him and
stroke was 2002, but I don't have a date. June 24th, 2002. He hasn't had the stroke yet. He can so like it's plausible he could wrestle at this point. Like he
like
could have
him and Austin versus Hall and Nash would be like.
And I don't know about that kind of match, but this is where you could have done him and Vince.
Oh God.
Yeah. Like this is where you could do him and Vince. Like this is sure he's had the concussions at this point. He had to retire, but he could actually do some stuff here. Like after the stroke, he was debilitated and like never should have gotten back in the ring. But like at this point, I think you could have actually used him reasonably.
But he comes back and he's like, "What? You're trying to destroy WWE? You can't destroy my legacy, motherfucker. I'm here to kill you."
Yeah, this would have been in Toronto. Like I think this would have been awesome.
Oh man, imagine Brett in Montreal the next night.
Oh my God. Yeah, Brett was not ready to do business with Vince yet. If I remember correctly, the stroke was a big turning point. Vince called him when he was in the hospital after the stroke, and that was when things really started to change. And then it was still a couple of years before they did like the DVD and then the Hall of Fame induction, and somehow even a couple of years after that before he'd actually like show up on TV.
It took a lot of steps. Like it was far apart.
I cannot say this about many things. I can't wait until we get to talk about that WrestleMania where he actually comes back.
And it's the worst match in the history of WrestleMania.
Yes. Okay, so to finally get to the show.
Yay.
Sunday, March 17th, 2002 at the Sky Dome in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. Attendance 68,237 with 61,069 paid for a gate of 6.1 million Canadian dollars. Do you want to guess how many American dollars that is?
I can never remember if Canadians are higher or lower. Is it?
It's varied over the years. Here, the American dollar is stronger, so that's 3.86 million American dollars, which is a new WWF gate record. I believe the previous record was the previous year at the Astrodome.
So, by the way, I was just actually digging into some numbers about WWE recently, and I found out what they made on the gate for WrestleMania this past year. Do you want to guess what that was?
$17 million?
16.7. You're damn good.
I think the WrestleMania in Dallas is the record. I think that was like over 17 million.
Yeah, but literally
like 80,000 people there or whatever.
They made just about as much on just the gate at WrestleMania as they did for YouTube ad revenue for the entire year.
Yeah, the internet still ain't shit.
Yep.
Buy rate 1.68, approximately 880,000 buys. That's down from 1 million buys the previous year, but still a good, strong number.
That can't be disappointing. That's the best show of all time.
This is the second most buys a pay-per-view, a wrestling pay-per-view has ever done at this point. Second only to WrestleMania 17.
And they had to expect a certain level of fallback. I mean, that's literally the best show.
Way softer than it was a year before, and as big as big as Hogan and Rock was, not quite as big as Austin and Rock when they're both at the peak of their powers.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right. On Heat, Albert, Rikishi, and Scotty 2 Hotty defeated Lance Storm, Mr. Perfect, and Test, with Jacqueline serving as the special guest referee.
I'm sorry, what?
What the hell is that match?
Okay, I know.
I get the face team because Albert and Scotty were team. Wasn't that the Hip Hop Hippo?
Yeah, this is when he's the Hip Hop Hippo and Rikishi's like a special. I do not get that heel team at all.
Well, yeah, 2 Canadians and Storm and Test, and Mr. Perfect being with WWE is so strange in this era. He's not around for long, but it's real weird.
He comes back in the Rumble and he literally feels like he's from another century, like he's a time traveler.
He looked good because Kurt Hennig always did.
But his look seems super dated, and he's still using his old music, which is literally like a MIDI file. It doesn't even sound like the rest of the music on the show. They didn't bother to re-record it. It's just so weird.
He gets fired a few months after this. Doesn't he? Him and Lesnar are horsing around on the flight from hell or whatever.
Yeah, plane ride from hell. Yeah, he was the casualty.
He gets thrown into the emergency door.
Famous last words. Hey, Brock, you think you're some kind of great wrestler? I was an amateur wrestler.
I don't know what made people think they could take Brock Lesnar. Only Kurt Angle could take Brock Lesnar.
And I think even Kurt Angle
could do it because he was so skilled, so fast.
But literally the greatest who ever lived.
Nobody else stands a chance against Brock. He's too strong and too skilled. To start the show, we cut straight into the arena where Saliva performs Superstar. It's a very different opening from Robert Goulet doing O Canada at WrestleMania 6.
Ladies and gentlemen, can I paint you a word picture, please?
Go for it.
This is the most disgusting looking WrestleMania of all time. Okay,
I just want you to describe this set.
It genuinely looks like they had the scaffolding up. Vince McMahon walked out one day and was just like, oh, that looks awesome. Just leave it like that. Yeah. It's just
scaffolding.
It's just a huge bunch of scaffolding in the way in the shape of a pyramid. They have one small screen right above the entrance and then one gigantic long screen on top. But the long screen only shows half of the picture. So literally the bottom half of the picture of whatever it shows is cut off. Which is ironic because this is the band Saliva, who you may remember from your ex-boyfriend in high school playing loudly in the car on his way to school. This is some douchebag jock rock.
I mean, I'm just jumping back to I was a fan of Saliva at this time. This was my kind of music.
Every white kid from the suburbs was listening to this kind of shitty douche rock back then.
Oh man!
This and Drowning Pool and Limp Bizkit and all of this.
Get a lot of Drowning Pool on this show too.
And Drowning Pool was the hippest act they had ever gotten. They were real proud of Drowning Pool, and so he's playing along. This is the opening video package that they do, except they do it live.
Superstar.
And in the background, they're playing the video. But because the screens are one tiny screen and one screen missing half the picture, you can't tell what's going on.
This is despicable.
And Saliva objectively sucks live. It's clear. Oh,
to me, WrestleMania, it should be classy. It's history. It's the showcase of the immortals. And they just, in this era, went so, dirty and grungy. the DX band performing America the Beautiful at WrestleMania 14. And sometimes they got it. Like Boys to Men at WrestleMania 15 doing
Oh,
America the
killed it.
Beautiful was amazing. And it's like, I think by 20, I feel like is when they chart the right course and start being like, this is a show about history. Like, let's clean this up. Let's make this classy again.
Somebody had to have talked Vince into this because Vince is the biggest mark for the like national anthem to start the show, like America the Beautiful. That's his thing. That's what he likes.
Those are some of the, I mean, those really are some of the most memorable WrestleMania moments.
There
Are
are
the great
two
musical
moments at
acts.
WrestleMania 3. There is Hogan slamming Andre, and there's Aretha Franklin singing America the Beautiful.
Yeah. And I thought Robert Goulet doing O Canada at WrestleMania 6 was great.
Yeah. This set sucks. This looks like WrestleMania 17 if you left it out in the sun for 3 weeks. That's this whole show's aesthetic.
Yeah, 17 had a great set. I loved that. That was that was a moment that stands out to me. Was turning on Heat and seeing that huge set, and it's just like, this is so much bigger than any other pay-per-view there's ever been.
Here's what I'll be sympathetic to them about, okay? There's no guide to how you do shows on this scale, to how you build sets on this scale. Always before, it had just been a ring in the middle of a gigantic teeming mass of people, and then people like running, and then the guys just like running out of the bleachers. Until WrestleMania 17, the whole artifice of a big show with a big set didn't exist. So they're making it up. I get how that could be confusing and difficult. They take a big swing here and they miss. At WrestleMania 19, they take a big swing and they miss. They do a shitty job of this for a long time. I don't remember the aesthetic of a WrestleMania really being special until like 24. Where like that was the one in Florida at the Orange Bowl.
Well, the thing is, they go back to, so 19. I like 19 in the baseball stadium, but I don't really like the set.
Yeah,
I just like the visuals of the baseball stadium and the natural light because it's on the West Coast and it's the afternoon. That is very beautiful.
20's in Madison Square Garden, so it's fine.
Yeah, you have to be small for the Garden. I kind of liked the movie and the red carpet thing at 21, but it's in an arena, which doesn't feel right. And 22 in Chicago is the same thing. It's not big enough. I don't
23
remember.
in Detroit's the same way. It's just
23 in Detroit. It's a big set, but I don't remember it. Like, there's nothing memorable about it.
It's not till 24 that they're like, what if we made these seem interesting?
Yeah, and 24 is also where they had the benefit of it's outside. They've got it's the first outdoor WrestleMania since 9.
Is that the best set for a WrestleMania? Is it 24?
It's definitely up there. And what I loved is because they have those lakes like right outside the arena, they can put the boats there and have those shoot fireworks all the way into the air.
Yeah, because the whole show is just like nothing but fireworks all night.
I don't really remember WrestleMania 25 set. 26, the Aztec Pyramid was kind of cool.
That was cool, yeah. And then now we're into this era where like every year they kind of knock it out.
I love the New York skyline for 29. That was a great idea.
I can't wait to see like what kind of like pirate themed shenanigans they come up with.
The WrestleMania pirate ship is something I'm very much anticipating.
So yeah, now these days like it's a whole art form. Like they have like a whole team of people who do nothing but this all year long. Is planned for this particular thing. It's very cool. But here like it's just they obviously have their people who just build the pay-per-view sets and they just throw a bunch of money at them and just say like go nuts. And they come up with this horrible scaffolding idea. So they come out every time a wrestler comes out, it just looks like the set's not done. Like it doesn't seem special, and it's dark.
If they were thematically, like Toronto's not an industrial city. If they were in Detroit or Pittsburgh, I would kind of get it that like it's factory, like we're going for an industrial look. But I don't get it for Toronto. It's just grunge. Again, it's just like grungy trash because that's the aesthetic of this company at this point.
And just Superstar and Tearaway by Drowning Pool being the songs of this show. They're not the worst pay-per-view themes. That comes next year. That's the worst pay-per-view theme of all time.
Rock Addict.
I'm addicted to cracking heads. But like these are like they're so ill-fitting to what they're trying to convey. And to have this terrible song be all the information you're giving your fans about this video that is just showing random clips, it's just shit. It's so bad. It's just a waste of 5 minutes of our lives.
And then they go to a really good package about the history of WrestleMania and each of the guys talking about how important WrestleMania is, that, this Hogan, this is my return, Rock, I'm taking on a legend, Triple H, this is what I worked for 8 months, Jericho, this is my chance to live forever. Focusing on WrestleMania 6 because it was in Toronto, this package was excellent.
Boy, it sure would have been better if Edge had been featured heavily in it because he was at WrestleMania 6 in Toronto.
Yeah. Would have been nice if he'd gotten a decent match on this show.
God, that's so stupid that they fucked that up. But yeah, this is a great package. Like, this is what you want.
Even like, who would you put him against though? Would you have maybe he wins the IC title from Regal here?
I don't know. That even feels like a little bit beneath him.
No, but I mean, he's not. It's not. If not for Triple H coming back from his quad injury, this would have been. Maybe this is the time you swing for the fences and put the belt on him.
I probably would have put him with Angle here, I think.
That would have been good.
At least that's like a big match for both of them.
They feud out. They do the hair versus hair feud after WrestleMania. And he could have had Kurt get shaved here.
That would have been gigantic.
They must have thought about doing a hair match with Booker T because of the shampoo stuff, but Booker was ready to go bald.
He's confirmed it. They pitched him.
Oh, they tried to get Booker to get his head shaved?
Uh-huh.
Yeah, that would have been the wrong move for him.
To be a fly on the wall in that pitch meeting, my friend.
Had to be Bruce Pritchard.
You want me to cut my motherfucking hair so
Tell
Edge
me
can keep his.
You did not just say that. All right, opening match for the Intercontinental title. William Regal defends against Rob Van Dam. RVD's first guy out. He gets an enormous pop.
The funny parallel between this and 17 is that this is basically the exact same
100%
match.
Same match.
It's just with Van Dam instead of Jericho. And that said, I vastly prefer this version.
Oh, this match is much better. Yeah. So the story here: Regal is the Intercontinental Champion. He won the belt from Edge at the Royal Rumble using brass knuckles. That's become his signature. It's the so-called power of the punch. And I really enjoyed the kind of old school heel work he'd do of like, it was just this question each week he'd come out, where's he hiding the knucks this week? Like, are they in his boot? Are they in his trunks? Are they in his knee pads? Like, how's he going to use he has a second pair this time. It was fun.
Yeah, it's just a cool idea. And like about halfway through this match, like he and Van Dam are just like, oh, we're both just going to be stiff tonight? Cool, let's go.
Oh, you're working Van Dam? Get your hands up, brother.
But I bet you it's the same way with, oh, you're working Regal? Don't give him live rounds because he'll give them right back.
About 30 seconds into the match, Regal pulls the knuckles out of his trunks, but Van Dam kicks them away.
I so love that spot. I loved, like, Van Dam. Like, when Van Dam wanted to be precise with his kicks, he could, like, kick the flame off a candle. It's just half the time
somehow he broke somebody's nose every week in this era.
I think it was, like, stupid like a fox. It was just like, oh, man, I'm so sloppy, brother. Sorry about that, motherfucker.
Pick a hand. Yeah. Van Dam comes off the second rope with a thrust kick. He goes for the 5-star, but Regal moves. Regal is briefly in control, but Van Dam hits him with a backdrop. Regal shuts the comeback down with the Regal cutter. Van Dam pops up, hits a spin kick, rolling thunder, but Regal gets his knees up to block it. Regal hits a tiger bomb. Now we see that he's bleeding out of his mouth, which is pretty much a requirement for an RVD match in this era.
Sure, obviously.
Van Dam runs Regal into the corners. He attempts an underhook suplex. He hits a monkey flip. He goes for the spin kick. Regal ducks it and hits him with a half Nelson suplex. This was awesome.
Just like directly on his neck.
Yeah. Van Dam, because he's made of, gum, folds up like an accordion on the suplex.
And like Van Dam could do this in a way that like you would always think he was dying, but like if you watch it enough, you realize that he's like mastered just like landing right on the bridge of his shoulder, so it looks like he's caught his head, but it's not. Like I've never seen anybody master that like he did. And he could like do it in a way where he like
also Van Dam also now bleeding from the mouth.
Of course, because Regal's not going to let you give him live rounds and not give him back.
Regal gets his brass knucks, but the referee gets them away. Van Dam hits him with a kick, and then the 5-star frog splash for the pin. Quick but fun opening match.
Yeah, I mean, there's literally no complaints about this. This is about exactly what you want for the opening match on a show like this. Like, quick, easy, an over heel, an over face wins. Awesome.
Next, we go to the back where Lillian Garcia interviews Christian, asking why he turned on DDP and if he'll win the European title tonight in his hometown.
Let me say this, and maybe this is like a hot take. I don't know. You can tell me if you need to pull me back from the precipice here. Christian is undisputably one of the best wrestlers in WWE history. I think it's fair to say, just in terms of in-ring work. And once he finds his Captain Charisma character, he's indisputably one of the best characters in wrestling until like he hangs it up. But this Christian has no business being on television.
That is a hot take. I mean, this version of Christian, he looks gross, but that's kind of his gimmick, that he's a creepy little bastard.
I know, but like his hair is horrible and his gear is horrible and like his entrance is terrible and like.
You don't like the "At Last You're on Your Own" entrance?
I love it. I love it, but he doesn't sell it right, and it's just weird.
Christian.
I mean, I liked it, but they didn't play it right. Like I don't know, like. There's just something about Christian during this era where it's just like, why is he still around? He's not doing anything.
Oh, so it's a European title match. Diamond Dallas Page defending against Christian. This will be the final time the European title will be defended at WrestleMania. What a shame.
It'll also be DDP's. Is this his last match in WWE? No, he does more, right?
He has a few after this, but he's done within the next few weeks. He has some back problems, and that's the end of the road for him.
Yeah,
and he goes to TNA.
Let's talk about DDP and what he's doing.
Somehow he's still wrestling today.
He literally was just giving diamond cutters on television like last week. He has outlived everyone on this show. Except Jericho.
In some cases, literally.
Yeah.
So this is positively Page. This is motivational speaker DDP. That's not a bad thing. That's a good thing. I guess that was the only way to cope with it, having been saddled with that pervert gimmick they gave him when he came in.
Me being a stalking pervert's not a bad thing. It's a good thing.
When Undertaker completely kicked my ass and buried me in that feud, that wasn't a bad thing. That was a good thing.
When they put me with Canyon and then like buried us both at the same time for no reason.
That was a good thing.
Oh, DDP.
The fact that I went from a top babyface in WCW to a complete joke in the WWF.
You know, one of the saddest things is that The Rock badly wanted to work with DDP. Like that was like
who's the real people's champ?
Yeah, because literally they met in a locker room for the first time, and The Rock said something to him like, "Yeah, I'm the people's champ," and like DDP hit him with like, "I'm the real people's champ," and like they both wanted that match so bad, and that's like the one match The Rock couldn't get. Like he got all of his other dream matches, just not that one.
So the storyline here was that Christian was on a long losing streak, and he would he had started throwing like fits in the ring where he would pound on the mat and cry, and Paige helped him get over that through the power of positivity, and then Christian turned on him.
And then DDP just beats him, sending Christian right back into the tantrum cycle.
Christian is announced as now residing in Tampa, Florida to get heat.
And then they do it for real. Like it becomes a shoot later on.
Yeah, can't have a babyface from Canada. Chris Benoit's from Atlanta now.
Fucking Jericho, Benoit, and Christian all being from Florida and Atlanta is just disgusting.
Paige out second to not much of any reaction, but come on. They killed this guy. He just doesn't know he's dead yet.
It is very clear that Vince or somebody insisted that all the titles be on this show, because otherwise this match has no fucking business on this show.
More than the hardcore match, though.
Yeah,
Get to that in a second.
But this is a heat match through and through.
This is actually a WrestleMania return for DDP. As you'll recall, he drove Honky Tonk Man and Greg Valentine to the ring in his pink Cadillac at WrestleMania 6.
He drove that pink Cadillac literally like 1,000 miles across the country.
Tampa to Toronto.
Just to drive it out to the fucking ring and then drive home.
God, that man loved wrestling.
He sure did. Still does.
Paige with a really cool gut wrench rib breaker to get things started. Christian takes over, but Paige quickly gets the advantage. He tries to crotch Christian on the ring post, but gets his face slammed into it instead. Christian goes to the top and gets thrown off. Both guys are down. They both get to the feet. Paige hits a diamond cutter out of nowhere and gets the 1, 2, 3. That was a quick match.
It's fine. Christian throws a big temper tantrum in the ring afterwards. It's whatever.
Then we go backstage where The Rock is with Jonathan Coachman. Rock asks Coach if he took his vitamins this morning, and Coach says he did take his vitamins. He asks him, "Did you say your prayers this morning?" And Coach says, "No, I didn't. I got busy." Rock yells at him, tells him to get down on his knees, and says his prayers. Coach starts his prayer by saying, "What up, G?" Rock tells him to get his sick ass out of here.
Jonathan Coachman was The Rock's muse.
Coach was this is the only time Coach has ever been good, was as a foil for The Rock. He was somehow the best at this.
Getting him to admit that he was into farm animals and "you sick freak" became a catchphrase just because of this.
Oh man.
Jonathan Coachman did an interview where he was just yeah, sometimes people yell at me, "You sick freak," when I'm out and about. My family doesn't like that.
Never live it down. Next up, we have an inexplicable match for the hardcore title as Maven defends against Goldust. Fuck. Maven is the hardcore champion? Why?
And he's defending against Goldust, who has been microwaved warm so he can appear on this show.
Goldust returned to the WWF at the Royal Rumble. It's first WrestleMania for him since WrestleMania 15. Can't say I missed him much.
This is obviously going to be the start of a running through line for this entire show, which I enjoy quite a bit. They just decide, all right, instead of having a bunch of backstage segments, we'll just make them all be somebody new wins the hardcore title. It'll be fun. And it is fun. But
tough enough winner Maven making his first and only WrestleMania appearance. I do always mark out for that Tough Enough theme music.
I was about to say, I wonder if Vince was just gotta have that fucking music on the show.
God, I wish they'd had that band show up and play.
The most tragic thing is that if you go back and watch through the archives on WWE Network, that song's not in there. So every time Maven comes out, it's just some generic rock. And it takes Maven from being oh man, I remember liking Maven, to being oh wait, no, Maven sucks. I just like that song.
So, of course, a couple months before this is when he eliminated The Undertaker from the Royal Rumble.
Which is a legendary moment in a lot of ways.
Incredible. And the only good thing he did in his career.
And The Undertaker putting his head through the popcorn machine.
I always thought Maven should have been a heel, and his catchphrase should have been, "The ladies are all craving Maven."
And that's why you make the big bucks, Steve.
They fight out to the floor right away. Goldust hits an elbow drop off the apron. Goldust pulls out gold trash cans. Feels like that's a redo from WrestleMania 12 with Piper.
Oh, yeah.
Maven manages to drop kick one of them into his face. Goldust pulls out a golden shovel, which feels like a metaphor.
Oh boy, it sure does.
They hit each other with simultaneous trash can lid shots, which knocks both of them out. Spike Dudley runs in and pins Maven to win the hardcore title. And Crash Holly shows up and goes after Spike, who flees through the crowd.
The only thing that would have made this segment good to me is if, like, Roddy Piper had driven, like, a fucking flatbed truck.
No, the gold Cadillac. He won it in the WrestleMania 12 match.
If he could just, like, run over Goldust backstage and pin him to win the hardcore title.
Would that have been a better return for Piper than in the Hogan Vince match the year after this?
Yes.
Get to that next week.
Yeah, oh my God.
I'm now going to say a series of words, and you're just going to have to take my word for it that these were actually uttered on this show.
Here we go.
Now, to tell you the story of tonight's WWF Undisputed Championship match, Platinum recording artist Drowning Pool.
Okay, guys, here's the thing. I need you to understand, there are songs that have been so indelible and, like, particular video packages and stuff that you could have maybe pulled this off. Like, Limp Bizkit sucks. But if you had done this with My Way...
My Way the year before this, that would have been awesome.
Yeah. Like, Shawn Michaels and The Undertaker's, like, Running Up That Hill by Placebo, like, yeah. There are videos that you could have just played the song and played the video, and it would have been compelling. Like, to play the amazing song that backs this incredible storyline. Here we go, a live version. Okay. This Drowning Pool's Tearaway has literally nothing to do with this match.
This garbage feud between Jericho and Triple H.
You couldn't even get them to do an original fucking song about this match, really? Really? Drowning Pool doesn't have much to do.
So that goes on for several minutes.
God. It's just wretched. This kind of music does not play well live, especially in a gigantic arena where nobody cares.
Yeah, I was at one of the NXT Brooklyn shows, and it opened with this just terrible metal performance that would not end.
And it's just like, if you're not into it, it's the most interminable thing in the world.
Yeah. Oh, once they're done telling us the story, we go backstage to Crash beating up Spike. Al Snow drives in on a golf cart, but he misses both the guys and runs into a pile of cardboard boxes. Hurricane runs in and gets the pin on Spike to win the title.
I just love, there must have been meetings where, like, all 20 people involved in this storyline would be in a room, and, like, the agents would go in and be like, all right, here's what everybody's doing. Al, you're going to drive a golf cart shittily into a pile of crap and then go home. That's it. You're going to put on your tights and then drive a golf cart into a wall.
What do you think somebody gets paid for that on a show like this? Isn't that a $5,000 payoff?
If you appear on screen on WrestleMania, I think that's the minimum, yeah.
Feels like it.
So, like, yeah, fuck yeah, I'll do whatever you want, man. If you want, he can just hit me in the nuts with a crowbar. Just give me my $5,000.
Next up, in a match that felt a lot like getting hit in the nuts with a crowbar, it's Kurt Angle versus Kane.
Kane is at this point where he's just there. And, like, you always have to include him in stuff because he's over and around. But there's literally no imaginable direction you could send him in where anyone would give a shit.
No, he needed a heel turn at this point.
And in the next year, he will unmask and have his moment. And that's cool. And then it'll go to shit again. But, like, that's where this is going. To the saddle Kurt with this. Kurt, who should have won the Undisputed title, who could have won the Royal Rumble. Like, Kurt, who in the summer was your top star.
Yeah.
He is the fourth match on this card wrestling Kane in a 10-minute match.
Kurt comes out first. He gets on the mic and says that if he had won his Olympic gold medal the way Canada's figure skaters won their medals, he'd have shot himself in the frickin' head. I very vaguely recall the details of what he's talking about. This was the figure skating judging scandal.
Oh, I had no idea what he was talking about. I'm
There
like,
was
that
a
is.
judge who took a payoff, and they did like the Canadians got screwed, so they did like two gold medals.
Yep. Okay, I do remember that now that you mention
It
it.
was
Yeah.
I believe that was the '02 Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City.
When was Ben Johnson? Isn't that a better reference to use?
That would have been a good one. That was in the '90s. Yeah,
Yeah. Anyway,
that might have been. Was that Atlanta?
I think it was
No, I think that was I think that was '92. That was Barcelona or wherever.
Barcelona. Yeah.
Dream
All right.
team.
Fair enough.
Kane is out second. He does look great. He is in great shape. I think this is a cool look.
Oh, this is maybe the best he ever looked. Like he's just ripped to shreds. He's like in great shape. Like his muscles are
I
all
like
out.
this gear more than like the patch gear they would give him later in the year.
Yeah, this is just kind of like he kind of looks like a normal guy now. Like you probably could have just instead of transitioning into the wild craziness that they do later, like you could have just transitioned him into a normal guy at this point. I have to imagine that even though like, and I'm sorry, Glenn Jacobs, like you seem like a wonderful man, but one of the ugliest human beings ever to walk the face of the earth. But if you're this ripped, it doesn't matter.
So the story here is Kane suffered quote unquote head trauma from a chair shot from Kurt a few weeks ago. Lawler finds the phrase head trauma hilarious.
Literally, this whole match is just jokes about concussions.
Yeah, this
It's
doesn't age well.
this is really unpleasant.
Kurt blasts Kane in the head with the ring bell before the match starts. Anytime Kane gets anything going, Kurt hits him in the head. Kurt hitting the rolling German suplexes on Kane is pretty damn impressive.
It's very cool. It's a very good spot.
Kurt goes to the top and hits a flying clothesline. Kane comes back with a clothesline of his own, and they're both down. Big boot from Kane, backdrop, clothesline, power slam. Kane sets up for the choke slam, but Kurt gets a hand on the ropes. Kurt goes for Kane's mask and uses that opportunity to hit the angle slam, but Kane kicks out. Kurt then goes to the ankle lock. Kane powers out of it, but Kurt reapplies it. Kane gets to the ropes, and then he hits an enziguri when Kurt won't let him out. That was pretty cool.
God, he could do such cool stuff.
Yeah. Kane goes to the top. Kurt pops up and throws him off. Kane goes for the tombstone. Angle rolls through into a pinning combination and like kind of gets a foot on the ropes, but not really. And I think Kane's shoulders came off the mat. I don't know if that was intentional, if they were trying to protect him.
I'm not sure. This match is fine. Like it's probably Kane's best WrestleMania match, which is sad.
Illustrious competition there.
Let me pitch you an idea. Because we agree that Edge versus Booker T and Kurt Angle versus Kane are stupid matches, right?
What if it's Kane versus Booker T in a feud about fire and Kurt versus Edge in a hair versus hair match?
I was thinking Kurt Angle versus Edge in a hair versus hair match, but also Kane versus Booker T for the shampoo commercial.
Kane with those greasy locks.
Like Kane gets the commercial and Booker T's like, what the fuck? He doesn't even have real hair.
Was it always a wig?
No, it wasn't.
Okay,
but like,
yeah, he had hair back then.
Yeah, they made like, but that was part of the story is that like they found out later that it was a wig, and just having Kane be like, no, man, this is a wig. Don't tell anybody.
We go backstage where Hurricane hides out in the women's locker room while holding like a baseball bat or something. The Godfather's hoes walk in and start taking their clothes off. The gag is Hurricane is behind a screen and he has the kendo stick, so it looks like he's got an erection.
He's got a hurra boner.
And then the Godfather comes in and runs the sick freak out of there.
Oh my god.
Godfather, get him his check.
Godfather got so many of these checks over the years. Where he'd just be hanging out with Taker backstage and they'd be like, hey, you bring your pimp gear? And he'd be like, yeah, I wear it all the time.
what do you think the hoes got paid for this?
$1 each.
Yeah. $500. Like, I'm sure there was some paid discrimination going on here.
I'm sure Bruce Pritchard just went down to the club later that night and blew all his check on it.
Okay, business is about to pick up because we've got a no disqualification match between The Undertaker and Ric Flair. The feud here started when Flair stopped Undertaker from using a lead pipe as a weapon at No Way Out. Taker would lose his match to The Rock that night. Then he challenged Flair to a match at WrestleMania. Flair refused. Taker was like, you don't accept it, like, I will make your life hell. So he made it personal. He goes after Arn Anderson, beats him up, and then in a really awesome segment, like, tracks down David Flair at, like, the warehouse or wherever they're doing training for guys in that era and beats him up, like, bloodies him, and then, like, sits with him in the shower and, like, cuts a promo on Flair.
It's one of the coolest visuals I've ever seen. Like, he just beats the shit out of the kid, drops him in the shower, sits down next to him, like, grabs his head.
Puts his arm around him.
And it's just kind of like stroking it. He's just like, I'm going to beat your ass, Flair. You're going to give me my match.
Give me my match or I'm going to kill your son.
It's like, it feels real. Like, oh, fuck. Like, you don't touch people's kids. And, like, they shoot it in, like, a documentary style the way they didn't really shoot a lot of things then. Like, it's just, like, one shaky cam following Taker as he, like, assaults the entire dojo.
Flair responded with a great promo where he punched his head until he cut himself open.
Just like, man, and it doesn't go as easily for him as it normally did. So it took like a while of him just bashing himself in the face.
I love that him and Mick Foley hate each other and they both do that in their promos.
Well, it was like an old school thing. Like busting the eyebrow was just how you did it. Because like in the South in the like the 70s and 60s, you couldn't bring a blade. People couldn't see you do that. It would kill the business. Yeah. Like you had to split the eyebrow.
The hard way.
Your opponent, you had to trust your opponent to punch you in the face in just the perfect way.
Due to Flair participating in this match, he has temporarily stepped down as co-owner of the company. Vince is back in full control, and he made this a no disqualification match.
Thank God, because it's going to open the door for the one thing that you and I pop for together every single time we see it.
We see Taker ride his bike from backstage into the arena. He comes out to Limp Bizkit's Rollin'. Big pop for the dead man, even though he's a heel. For the streak watch, he's 9-0. It's been noted at this point, but it's not a central emphasis of the storylines. Like, this is not at all about, like, Flair trying to end his undefeated streak.
We have mentioned this because we've done all the WrestleManias to this point, and there are certain themes that pop up, right? And one of them is just the amazing coincidence of the Undertaker streak.
Yeah.
Because they in no way intended to make this a thing.
No. It's just the case that the Undertaker didn't lose very much.
Yes, but for 9 consecutive WrestleManias, they accidentally put him over until they're just like, oh, wait, 10? We're at 10?
We're still a couple years from it really It's really not. It's the Orton one where it finally becomes the thing. Like, we're still a couple years from that. Yeah. It's amazing it took that long. Flair out second. This is his WrestleMania return after a decade absence. He is wearing the same red gear he wore at WrestleMania 8. Great to see the Nature Boy back at WrestleMania.
Yeah, this is very cool. And, like, this is another one of those dream matches where, like, man, I never realized I wanted to see Taker fight Flair until now. But, like, here we go. This is great.
It's a bit of a weird one. I mean, yeah, we didn't really talk at all about kind of Flair and his role here, but when they signed him, I mean, Flair's feeling was, I'm done wrestling. Like, I'm not getting back in the ring. They had to drag him kicking and screaming into the ring, but he's in amazing shape.
It's basically Triple H's whole period here. It's just like Ric Flair is his hero, his god. And, like, Ric Flair has lost his confidence. His body's not what it was. He feels everyone's been telling him he's an old man for so many years. He doesn't think he can do it anymore. Like, it's not that he physically can't.
He's 53 years old here. He's the same age as, like, Taker and Triple H are right now.
But he's not physically beat up or anything. It's not like he has to.
Well, he did break his back in a plane crash 25 years before this.
Don't even fucking break that. He wrestled for 25 fucking
Yeah.
years. So, like, somehow him bumping on his side never fucking messed him up even worse. But
Yeah.
like, he can wrestle. He just doesn't feel like he should anymore. And like Triple H slowly convinces him, like, you're fucking nature boy, get in the ring, everyone will love it. And he does, and he's right. Like, he gets like a whole other arc to his career that is longer than the amount of time he wrestled for WCW.
You probably could have had Flair and Austin team up. That might have been big enough against the outsiders.
Kind of already like hated each other, though.
They're going to them feuding. Like, that's where they're going to go after WrestleMania. So maybe that could be the setup for that. But
I guess that's true.
In any case, this is a great match. This is a very worthy WrestleMania return for Flair.
This is so good. Taker
unexpectedly too. I wasn't expecting much from this.
I wasn't expecting Taker to sell as much as he did. Like, he gives Flair everything. This is You can tell when Taker respects someone and he wants to do like business with them, and like he wanted to put Flair over, like, and he does. And I guarantee you, I would bet $100 billion that he's the one who told Arn Anderson, "Look, I'm taking a spine buster. You're giving me a spine buster."
They immediately fight out to the floor. Flair kicks Taker's ass, just nailing him with rights and lefts and chops. But Taker overpowers him, beats him with the soup bones. Flair does the Flair flop. He gets booted off the apron. Taker lays into Flair and Flair blades, and this is a gusher. Again, a WrestleMania return, same big blade job he did at WrestleMania 8. Don't think he got fined for this one like he did at WrestleMania 8.
Probably not. We're all about dirty, grimy blood.
What on earth was the point of him bleeding in that match against Savage?
He just wanted to.
Like, seriously, maybe the most unnecessary blade job I can think of.
He's probably just like, look, man, I don't really feel like working that hard, so maybe we just blade and get the crowd that way.
Savage blading would have made sense.
Savage didn't blade.
Is that true?
I mean, I'm sure he did at some point, but he didn't. That's not something he did. No.
I can't think of him ever. I'm trying to think of a match where he bled and nothing's jumping out at me. Yeah.
Because also, and it makes sense if you think about it, because he's somebody who needed to meticulously control what happened in his matches, and you can't completely control a blade job, and he can't trust somebody else to do it.
Yeah. Flair makes a comeback with some big chops. Taker shuts it down and hits a massive superplex. This is like the only superplex I remember from his entire career. Yeah. He goes all the way up to the top rope for it.
God, that's a huge bump for Taker to take, too.
Yeah. Taker pulls Flair up on the pin at 2, knocks him down again, pulls him up again. Taker misses an elbow drop. At this point, JR calls Undertaker Booger Red, which is a nickname that never quite caught on.
JR really had hit or miss luck with nicknames during this era.
Cerebral Assassin was a good one.
That's the one that stuck. The Bionic Redneck didn't really.
What is Booger Red is, I cannot think, it's a football player from Texas. Tommy something. I can't think of the guy's name. But like, that was the impetus for another red-haired Texas badass.
His name was nickname. Tommy Novus. Novus. No, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, football legend at UT, and JR's an Oklahoma fan, so UT Oklahoma rival. Not a good nickname.
Yeah, but like, that's one of those references too that only JR would get. So it's like, why are you making it, man?
Taker goes for old school. Flair throws him off the top rope. Taker hits a sidewalk slam. Taker covers. This time Flair actually kicks out at 2 rather than being pulled up. They go out to the floor where Taker gets a lead pipe from Taker's bike and nails him in the head with it. Hits a few more shots with the pipe. Taker manages to run Flair into the apron and knock the pipe away. Flair gets one of the keep off signs from the security wall and hits Taker with it. They go back in the ring and Flair gets Undertaker in the figure four. Crowd's going crazy now, starting to look like Flair might actually pull this off. In a spot I love, Taker sits up, goozles Flair, and like pulls him to his feet to get out of the hold and choke slams him. He just barely makes the cover and can only get two. So Taker punches the referee out. He grabs the pipe, but Flair cuts him off. And now, in the moment of the match, Arn Anderson appears out of nowhere and hits a picture-perfect double-A spine buster.
Old-ass Arn Anderson, who has not appeared on screen performing an offensive maneuver in, gosh, a decade?
Not a decade, but like 5 years.
But like, comes out and literally hits the greatest spine buster I've ever seen. It's
300-pound Undertaker.
And
but
like,
just rotates him perfectly.
And you can't see Taker's face, but I swear to God you can tell that he's smiling when he takes it.
Ooh, Arn's first WrestleMania since WrestleMania 5. Flair covers, but he can only get two. Undertaker beats up Arn. He then locks him in the Dragon Sleeper, which I believe he called Taker Care of Business.
Yeah, taking care of business.
Did not catch on.
No.
Flair comes in with a chair. Taker puts him down with a big boot. Taker goes for the last ride, but he can't get Flair up. He then pivots to the tombstone, which gets a big pop because he didn't use it very often in this era. That's enough for the pin. What a great match.
This is just awesome.
Yeah. Bloody, brutal, great fight. Flair takes the loss, but he comes out looking like a man.
I can't say enough about it. Like, this basically revitalizes Flair's career. If he doesn't have this match, I don't know that he becomes a regular competitor. Like,
yeah. Yeah, this changed it.
Because, like, the match he had with Vince certainly sucked a bunch.
And this is probably what got them saying, like, oh, we can, him and Austin could be a big feud. And it could have been had Austin not quit. But...
yeah, because they were desperately looking for anything for Austin to do.
Yeah. Taker flashes 10 fingers to signify that he's now 10-0 at WrestleMania.
Fucking Taker knew way before they did.
Yeah, that's a shot they've used a million times over the years. Him all bloody on the ring apron, putting up 10 fingers.
Yep. What a badass.
We go backstage to Booker T, who was interviewed by Michael Cole. Booker is wearing reading glasses because Edge has been making fun of him for being stupid. I think this was after he did really badly on The Weakest Link.
Yes, that is what that's about. Yeah. Like, he, literally...
It's horrible. He couldn't answer a single question.
Oh, Booker.
This has been a running thing, people making fun of Booker, because The Rock always did this to him, too. Almost like it had something to do with him being black.
Something like Edge does it. There's like a little bit of an... yeah, there's definitely an undercurrent of racism to this. But also just like, that's just something that Booker himself has played into his whole career. Like, that's just... now when he comes out on commentary, it's a running joke. Like, oh, Booker's going to say some dumb shit now.
I've always enjoyed Booker T's commentary for that reason. He's kind of like Dusty Rhodes.
I unabashedly love Booker T's commentary. You literally have no idea what he's about to say, and I treasure that. Because everyone else, you know exactly. Yeah, you know exactly what the fuck Corey Graves and Michael Cole are about to say because they're so damn polished.
They're fucking robots.
And like Booker... he breaks up Michael Cole too, because like he'll like say some shit and Michael Cole be like, "Yeah, Booker, yeah, sure, buddy."
Booker says he won an award for his high school thesis on Einstein's theory of relatives.
God, I love it.
Next up, we've got Edge against Booker T. Yes, this is the shampoo commercial feud. That's dumb, but I don't hate it. I mean, it's kind of silly, but it gave them a reason to have this match.
The Japanese shampoo commercial feud,
yeah,
Steve.
It was Japan. I don't know. I just feel like that had kind of become a cultural thing, like the idea that like, John Travolta's a joke in America, but he makes all this money doing commercials in Japan had become a thing.
Yeah, it's just so funny because the whole crux of the feud is Booker T being like, my hair is beautiful. Appreciate my beautiful hair.
Those long locks.
And it's so funny that the hair versus hair feud isn't this one. It's what he does literally next.
Yeah, because they couldn't convince Booker to get his head shaved.
Yeah, if I were him, I wouldn't either. I
Yeah,
can make Edge shave his hair.
maybe if he'd been a team player, they wouldn't have done that racist feud the year after this.
Yeah, it just Vince in the meeting like, all right, you
Fuck
can
him.
keep your hair, but I'm gonna bury you next year.
Wouldn't
I'm
have had
gonna
that
make sure Triple H waits 30
Culture
seconds
hair
before putting.
nappy. Yes, and then waits a fucking 5 minutes to cover you after he hits the pedigree.
He was already plotting out the finish right in that meeting.
Oh man, Jesus. Of course, Edge was at WrestleMania 6, as was like every other Canadian pro wrestler.
Every other Canadian who exists on Earth.
Booker hits the missile drop kick. Edge hits a Hurricane Run off the top rope. Booker goes for the axe kick, but Edge catches him with the Edge-O-Matic. Booker goes to the top and hits a spinning heel kick, or Edge hits the spinning heel kick off the top. Edge catapults Booker. He goes for the spear, but he misses and hits the ring post. Booker hits the Harlem sidekick and then breaks out the spinneroonie for the only pop of the match so far.
I mean, there's not a lot. Again, this is a 6-minute match. There's not a lot of time to build to anything here.
Axe kick from Booker. Edge kicks out at 2. Edge does his own spinneroonie and then hits the execution for the pin.
It wasn't a bad spinneroonie, really.
Name for a finishing move.
Okay, shut up. For those of you who don't know, I'm called Cush because I used to be Educutioner because I was very lame on the internet when I was 16.
You make a name on the internet when you're 16. You don't think it's going to follow you around for the rest of your life.
And unfortunately, I had already started, like a public-facing review blog, and I was like, oh shit. I gotta stick with this. I did not think Cush would be the name that people would know me by and occasionally introduce myself to them as for the rest of my life.
We see Hurricane trying to sneak out of the building. Coach finds him in the parking lot and scolds him for being a peeping Tom.
You sick freak.
Yeah. Mighty Molly shows up, hits him in the head with a frying pan, and pins him. That was some good comedy.
This is some shit straight out of Looney Tunes because like all that was missing was just like the birds flying around Hurricane's head.
God, I love Mighty Molly. What a great gimmick.
What a great comeback she just had in the Women's Rumble. Like I was so happy to see her. God, so good.
I love. Didn't they have an entrance where like it was like, stand back, there's a hurricane coming through, and then like she'd go, and Mighty Molly.
And it was like clearly a different audio track, like they did that on purpose. It's like a really low quality one. It's like, and Mighty Molly.
It was like Rosie's superhero and training gimmick.
To this day, I don't know how they got that.
What? Superhero and training?
Like how they got that on TV ever.
Oh, yeah.
How they got Rosie to agree to be a piece of shit on television.
WrestleMania 20, Rock does his promo, and the camera's just like looking around backstage, and you see Hurricane Rosie, and it's like, hey, it's Grimace and the Hamburglar.
Is that the crux of his eventual feud with?
No, that's
Hurricane?
after. It's a callback, because that had been the year before. He did call him the Hamburglar the year before.
God,
we're going to spend a long time on Hollywood Rock and the Hurricane next week.
God, that's like one of the most fascinating things any top star has ever done is be like, hey, comedy mid-carder, let's work a fucking program.
While I'm in the middle of feuding with Stone Cold Steve Austin and we're supposed to main event WrestleMania.
Like, that is just some, like, next level weird shit.
Scorpion King's got a tiny ding-a-ling.
And it was so much more over than the feud that they were interrupting.
Yeah, it was like at the point where they should have just done Rock versus Hurricane at WrestleMania.
Like, literally, that was like... I remember that's one of the few feuds, especially during this time, that you would, like, go to school and people were talking about. Like, oh my god, the Hurricane said this.
doing like 10-minute backstage segments every week, and they were hilarious.
Like, this was the character The Rock was born to play. Like,
I just
Okay, we can't talk
love.
about this yet. We can't do this
I
yet.
know we're going down a rabbit hole. We'll get to it next time. Next up, it's Steve Austin versus Scott Hall. Austin is out first. It's a nice pop, but nothing like he got the previous year in Houston. He has cooled off a lot.
No, and he even looks like a shell of himself. He doesn't seem dialed in for this. There's no intensity. He's just here.
Hall is out second. Pretty again. We both love the NWO black and white entrance. The reveal is that he's got Kevin Nash here with him, which they treat as if it's a big surprise, and there's no reason why it would be.
They didn't really explain on TV that he was hurt and like wouldn't be there. That's like,
He
all
just
right,
wrestled on Raw in that tag match.
of course he's here. Like, you guys are always together.
Hall's first WrestleMania since WrestleMania 11 in 1995, and his last WrestleMania match. Last appearance until the Hall of Fame segment at WrestleMania 30, and then he did the NWO run-in at WrestleMania 31, which, oh boy, is that on my list of things I want to talk about.
Yes, the DX versus NWO blow-off feud.
Fuck was that? Kevin Nash is out with Hall, as I just mentioned. Austin jumps Hall right off the bell. Thesz press, right hands. Hall bails to the floor to recover. I notice he's got a little hole in his chest. I believe he had fluid drained out of it earlier in the day. He's not in great shape.
That doesn't seem great. And despite that, he bumps his ass off for Austin in this match.
He does. I mean, he works hard here, and I don't know, there's this paradox of Scott Hall where he both looks like shit and looks great at the same time.
Yeah, because like here, like you can tell that like he's not doing well physically, he's not doing well mentally. He's still ripped to shreds, and like he still looks like a superstar.
6'7" with jet black hair, and yeah.
He's got charisma for days.
A big dude. I don't think he's not that much shorter than Nash. He's like the same size as Hogan.
It's just so funny to me that he spent his whole career basically like being the job guy in the main event when like just because everyone around him was bigger than he was, if he came along today, he would be Kane.
Giant, yeah.
Yeah.
The dude who's like legit 6'6".
They would throw Roman Reigns.
Pounds.
They would throw Roman Reigns in a garbage bin to get Scott Hall.
Yeah, I mean, obviously he had a lot of success in his career, but yeah, you think about guys who just came along at kind of the wrong time, and he's definitely up there.
Yeah.
Hall gets the advantage. Crowd is just dead silent. Nobody cares about this. Fall away slam by Hall. Nash hits some cheap shots on Austin behind the referee's back. Austin catches Hall with a stunner, but Nash pulls the ref out of the ring and knocks him out. Nash gets in the ring and beats Austin down. Hall brings in a chair. Nash holds Austin for it, but Austin catches Hall with a boot, and then a stunner on Nash. Another ref comes in to make the count, and Nash drops an elbow on him. Hall gets up, goes for the outsider's edge, but he gets backdropped over the top rope. Referees run down and tell Nash he has to leave, and he inexplicably does, because the NWO is all about following the rules.
That happens so many times during the NWO, especially when it was like the new NWO, where Flair would be like, "You guys gotta leave," and they'd be like, "All right, cool,
All
yeah, we'll
right,
go. Whatever." Dude, like, you're fucking Kevin Nash. You could murder all of these tiny referees right now if you felt like it.
I mean, I think this just emphasized the extent to which they didn't get the NWO. Like, they're just treating them like another heel stable.
Yeah, and like not even a particularly compelling one. Like, just like, all right, we'll obey the rules. They're just kind of dicks. Like, that's not gonna get over.
No, like, these guys in WCW laid waste to the entire promotion. Like, just the three of them would take on, like, the entire roster and beat up everybody. Like, we remember that segment when the Giant joined them, and it was just, like, the four of them kicked the shit out of, like, the Four Horsemen and like Sting and Lex Luger and like half the roster all at once.
And it wasn't even close. Like they
Yeah.
were just beating asses. The crux of it was Hall and Nash versus three of the biggest stars in wrestling history, and they beat their fucking asses.
Yeah. And here, like, they can't, I mean, I know it's Steve Austin, but like, they can't even take Steve Austin. The two of them
The two of them together.
are getting
Like,
their asses handed to them by Austin. Austin goes for another stunner. Hall counters with a stunner of his own. Tim White crawls back in to make a slow 2 count. Hall goes for another stunner. Austin counters it. He hits Hall with one stunner. Hall like stands up dazed. Austin hits him with a second stunner, and Hall gets like flies into orbit on this. Like
I will
jumps
argue
like 5 feet in the air.
there are many schools of thought as to what's the best stunner sell. Lots of people love The Rock's, where he just goes flying across the ring. Angles is really good, where he looks like he just got hit with a shotgun blast, where he just pops straight backwards.
This was incredible.
This is the greatest sell of any move in the history of professional wrestling.
He goes flying.
There's no way that Austin knows that he's not going down with the first stunner. That's clearly just something Hall decides to do. So, like, he turns around and Hall's just, like, tottering around. He's like, well, all right. And he gives him another one.
I love the idea that for 1 second there, it looks like Hall was going to no-sell the stunner.
He just turns around like, this motherfucker's going to die.
Yeah, and then they're just going to have a shoot fight because Austin's tired of his shit.
Oh, if Scott Hall just decided, nope, not going down for the stunner in the middle of the ring at WrestleMania against Austin, it would have been the most chaotic moment in wrestling history. But instead, what he really wants to do is just like, hit me with it again. I want to jump into the stands. And that's basically the last moment of Scott Hall's wrestling career. Is taking this amazing stunner.
He's around for like a few weeks after this, and then he gets fired. And I don't know, does he have a cup of coffee in TNA?
I don't think he even really does. Like, I'll look it up while we talk about stuff. But
wasn't he on? I thought he was on. We did that very first NWA TNA show, and I thought he was on there.
He was on that one, but I don't think he stuck around.
No, I think that was just a one-off. And yeah, I mean, just fell further and further down the hole of his addiction until his body was so broken he couldn't wrestle anymore.
Apparently, I've searched Scott Hall TNA so many times that it took me directly to it. Yeah, because he and the band showed up in TNA. That's right.
Oh, I remember that now. Wait, that was in like 2010, wasn't it?
That was 2007. Wait, no. Yep, 2010.
That was Hogan, right? Yeah.
Let me give you a list. Okay, quick aside. Let me give you a list of Scott Hall's appearances in TNA, okay? He comes in for the Battle Royal. He loses to Jeff Jarrett in a stretcher match. He and Six Pac lose to Elix Skipper, or they beat Elix Skipper and Brian Lawler.
What?
Yep. He gets a title shot but loses to R-Truth in the year of our Lord 2002. He comes out in 2004. Nash, and Jarrett start a stable called the Kings of Wrestling. Hall beats AJ Styles, loses to Randy Savage, Jeff Hardy, and AJ Styles.
Oh, I remember that.
He has a feud with Hector Garza. Let's see here. He and the Insane Clown Posse show up to a show. TNA asked ICP to attend the event, but were unaware they were going to invite Scott Hall.
Scott Hall was the throw-in in that deal.
Then they revived the band. And then he showed... Oh, God, yeah. And then that's the end. His last match is in Juggalo Championship Wrestling, like so many people.
Oh, my God. Yeah. I think that pretty much sums up the career arc of Scott Hall. Austin gets the pin. It was an okay match. This pretty much kills the NWO that Hall and Nash got beat here. Like, you can't beat one guy, even if it's Steve Austin in their first match. Yeah, like, and I'm not going to argue Hall should have won here. Like, this storyline was dead.
Yeah, that's the unfortunate thing is that there's no way to go forward with any of this. Like nobody's going to look good for being
The
involved in this
only
crap.
thing, if you had debuted, if Shawn Michaels had showed up to join here, like that would have been enough. If Shawn had shown up and hit Austin with chin music to let Hall get the win, like I think that might have been the spark they needed.
That would have been pretty cool.
Like Shawn does join a little bit after this.
Or
Yeah.
maybe they're like beating his ass at the end of the match after Austin wins. Michaels runs down for the save, but then joins
Yeah.
him. Yeah, that would work.
Austin drinks some Molson's to celebrate. They show clips of fan access where they had a statue of Stacy Keibler's legs and butt. Yes, that's real.
I mean, of course.
Why wouldn't you?
Why
People are
would you
taking
not?
pictures, kissing it, and all sorts of gross stuff.
Oh, finally, we got a woman away from her annoying upper body and face. Like, what? That's the dream, I guess. Imagine
Next up,
being asked. Oh, just real quick. Imagine being commissioned to build that statue.
yeah, like I don't know who did that, but yeah, you went to art school or whatever, and you're doing a bust of a woman's legs and ass.
And like they had to probably bring like sample photos, just like, yeah, here's a bunch of pictures of her ass. And the guy's like, okay.
So that gross dudes can take pictures of it and ogle it.
Neat.
Next up, we've got a tag title match. Billy and Chuck defend against the Dudley Boys, the Hardy Boys, and the APA. This is a bit of a step down from the tag title matches we had at WrestleMania the last couple of years.
Ironically, with the APA, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys all being in here, Billy and Chuck are the only over team in this match.
It really kind of is, yeah. The Dudley Boys are played out to the ring by Saliva. They've got Stacy Keibler as their valet, which is one of those like weird combos I've always enjoyed.
The Duchess of Dudleyville.
And she looked good in those glasses.
It was a great thing. I mean, they needed something, and like that was good. It freshened them up a little bit.
APA out to a pretty mild reaction. Hardys get a bit of a pop, but they've cooled off. I mean, they were gonna break them up, and then the match they had was so bad they decided not to.
That's just another one of those things where like, oh, we can always fall back on the Hardys breaking up. Oh wait, no, we can't. That
Oh,
sucked ass.
yeah, turns out they've got zero chemistry with each other unless they're, fighting at the Hardy compound.
Oh god. I bet you Vince was real bitter when he found out that the only good Hardy Boys match ever was
Do
on
you think
TNA.
he ever heard about that? Do you
Somebody
think like
had to have shown
somebody
him.
showed him that on their iPad or something?
And I'm sure he was like, I do not get this. Because when they brought Matt Hardy in, they were like, yeah, you can do your delete shit, but don't cut weird promos. Don't mention the compound. Don't bring any of this other stuff in. And he was like, oh, all right. You do not understand what I was doing.
And somehow teaming with Matt Hardy got Bray Wyatt the world title.
Oh.
Billy and Chuck out last. They're doing the gay gimmick. It's that team.
Yeah, it sure is, guys. We're headed to that wedding.
Real gay. Yeah, they're gonna almost get married in the fall.
They're doing deep lunges like gay men do. They're whipping each other with towels like gay men do. They're having gay sex like gay men do.
Some stuff happens. Then Bradshaw hits the clothesline from hell on Billy. Dudley's catch Bradshaw with the 3D and the APA are out. JR asks, who in the hell is legal? I don't know. Nobody knows.
This is a mess. And like they should know better. Like these are like Chuck is the only person in here who hasn't been wrestling tag wrestling for like 50 fucking years at this point.
Stacy gets up on the ring to distract Jeff with her ass, so Jeff spanks her and force kisses her and then shoves her off the apron.
That was so weird to see Jeff doing that.
Yeah.
Because Jeff is like weirdly asexual for his entire time in WWE.
Didn't
But
they? God, yeah, because God, imagine Jeff Hardy trying to be romantic and
trying
emote.
to emote in that. Yeah, they wanted him and Trish to
Him
do
and
a thing, but he was
Trish,
so uncomfortable with it.
negative chemistry.
Yeah.
Bubba hits the Bubba bomb on Billy, then beats up Jeff for a while. Jeff gets worked over for several minutes. Finally makes a hot tag to Matt. The crowd does not respond at all.
Nope.
Bubba misses a senton off the middle rope. Matt hits a leg drop off the middle rope. JR, I don't think Bubba has ever hit that move, and I'm pretty sure he's right.
I'm pretty sure he is too.
I love when you can tell JR hates a match, and he just, yeah, like this, he was not thrilled with what was going on here.
He did not pull out his old standby bowling shoe ugly, but he was thinking it.
Bubba and Devon go for the was-up headbutt, but Billy shoves Devon off the top rope through a table at ringside. Matt hits the twist of fate. Jeff hits the swanton bomb. Matt pins Bubba. We're down to Matt and Jeff against Billy and Chuck. Matt hits the twist of fate on Chuck. Jeff hits the swanton bomb. Billy comes in with the famouser, and Chuck is able to cover Jeff, but he only gets two. Billy then hits Jeff with the tag belt behind the ref's back, and Chuck gets the pin. That was a bit of a mess.
It was a disaster. Like, Billy, the APA, the Dudley Boys, and the Hardy Boys have had literally hundreds of matches with each other in some combination or another. That it could devolve into this shit fest is just weird.
I'm glad they didn't try to do another ladder match because they just needed to stop before these guys all died. But just tough to come down from that to this.
Yeah, it's very rough.
Backstage, Hall and Nash are talking. Hogan comes up, tells them to stay in the back for his match. He wants to beat Rock all on his own. Hall and Nash are kind of like, when Hogan walks away, they're like, what the hell's the deal with that?
Because in WCW, he definitely never said that to them.
No. Molly Holly tries to sneak out of the arena. A door gets slammed in her face, and Christian covers her for the pin.
And it was like this weird door that has like a top and a bottom.
Doors, yeah.
So
like I think it's like a kitchen, so you can like put food out when you're done cooking it or whatever.
But so she literally gets like clotheslined by the top of a door.
This is one of the most memorable moments of the show for me.
It really is.
Never forgotten this.
And Christian celebrates hugely.
I love this. Video package for Hogan versus Rock, and we are here for the match the world has come for. It's Hollywood Hogan against The Rock.
So let's take it back to where we both were when we watched this match for the first time. Like, were you watching live too?
Yep.
Okay. So when Hogan comes out and the reaction happens, what are you thinking in that moment?
Just wow. Like, I mean, look, I knew obviously Hogan was a big star. He had been the top heel in WCW for those years, but I had not really seen him. I guess the only time I had seen him get cheered like this was when he went back to the red and yellow in WCW and came out. So that
was like your frame of reference for like babyface Hogan.
This is so much bigger. This is insane, the reaction he gets here.
Because like even though he gets this reaction, and it is insane, it felt right to me. Because again, like I was one of those fans who wanted that so badly. And like right when he's in the aisle, he already starts playing it up. But I have to imagine if you're Hulk Hogan in that moment, you're like, holy shit. Like this is, I have to play to this. Like this is unlike anything even he's ever experienced. And no one's ever gotten bigger pops than him, except maybe Austin on occasion. Like this is, to be Hulk Hogan and get the biggest pops of your entire career now is nuts.
So the audio is a little distorted on the network because they've dubbed over Voodoo Child with the NWO theme, and that kind of messes with it. But you can just visually see how crazy the crowd is going.
that one group of guys like 10 rows back has like the giant banner of like 80s
Yeah.
Hulk Hogan on it. And it's like, there are certain crowds that just seem alive because like literally everyone in the crowd is jumping up and down or moving or reacting in some way. The average WB crowd now, like mostly it looks still because even if people are moving, not enough of them are that it looks like motion. This looks like a wave is hitting the entire Sky Dome at the same time. Everyone is up on their feet.
Jim Ross, you can love him or you can hate him. And from the sound of it, there's a lot of folks here in Skydome who love this legendary figure.
That kind of makes me think that Vince had already thought about this before because otherwise JR really shouldn't have been doing that.
They shy away from acknowledging what the crowd is doing for a lot of this match. It takes a little, they try to pretend it's not happening at first.
Yeah, they do like, oh, it's half for The Rock, half for Hogan, even as the entire crowd in unison is chanting Hogan.
King, you talk about what would happen if Mike Tyson fought Muhammad Ali or Babe Ruth went up against Barry Bonds, but we're actually going to witness it tonight. The Rock against Hulk Hogan.
Like once every 5 years, Jerry Lawler has a good line, and that's one of them.
Yeah. Start the clock again.
Yeah, exactly.
Just massive Hogan chants. I love Hogan's boots here. Those white boots with the blue flames and his face airbrushed on them.
He just looks vintage here. Like everything about it is iconic. Like
the boas were a good addition to his look.
His outfit here is great when he steps into the ring with The Rock. And The Rock is like at the peak of his physical fitness here because like, he's slimmed down for movie Rock. So like he's like literally like a professional athlete here. And like Hogan just kind of looks like an old he literally looks like an old theater actor who's just having like one last stage performance.
Rock out second. Noticeable boos. As he makes it to the ring, the crowd is buzzing. Both guys seem surprised by how big the reaction is. Like they're kind of looking around like, what the hell is happening here?
Well, we need to say this because this is important as a matter of historical record. This is probably the most electric atmosphere of any match in the history of professional wrestling. Like
I'm trying to think of anything quite like this.
Because it's not just that Hogan's getting pops and chants. That alone doesn't describe it. There's like a palpable intensity from the audience being projected onto the ring. And like to the point where two of the most over wrestlers who ever lived are visibly confused by how intense it is.
And particularly in like a post kayfabe era.
Yeah.
You know, there's in the old days there were riots and crazy shit would happen, but this is a different time. And yeah, for the crowd to be this engaged is not something you would see ever.
This is some Beatlemania shit. This is like, and it's entirely in an unironic way, which like you said, is just something you didn't see. They just loved Hulk Hogan, and regardless of what the storyline was, they were, as a group, as a 60,000 like strong group, were determined to love him.
Yeah, and they're getting to witness history here.
It's unthinkable. Like they expected pops, but they didn't expect this. Like no one's ever gotten this. So like I understand why they didn't necessarily put it on last. They should have. But they probably just expected a pretty hot match. If they had known they were getting literally the hottest match in the history of professional wrestling, they would have obviously put it on last.
Ooh. Crowd erupts for the bell. They lock up. Hogan overpowers Rock, throws him down, and flexes, and the crowd goes apeshit.
The camera starts shaking because it's so loud.
I love the way they keep going to the wide shots here to show the entire crowd and how much they're cheering.
It's important to mention, too, like, as Steve goes through this, there's only, like, 20 moves done in this entire match, it feels like. But, like, you don't need them. Every time anyone does anything, it's like close in on Hogan, close in on The Rock, wide shot of the crowd, gigantic pop.
Hogan puts Rock down with the, well, they lock up. First they lock up again. The crowd starts chanting, Rocky sucks. They break, hit the ropes. Hogan puts Rock down with a shoulder tackle and poses. Rock pops up, catches Hogan with a big clothesline, and is showered with booze.
Just annihilated by booze. And this is where Rock starts looking around at the crowd. Because he's just like giving him like the eyebrow, like, what the fuck?
It was one thing when it was like, oh, they were cheering Hogan at a time, but like now they're actively booing The Rock.
I say, we've decided you're the heel, so you can just do whatever with that information you want, but you're the bad guy.
There's an undercurrent with Rock now that everybody knows, movies are his first priority, and he's been taking a lot of time off to do movies. There was some resentment for that.
Yeah, Rock's leaving, and we just got Hogan back. So you know what, Rock? Fuck you. Get out. Go. We're done.
Rock goes for the rock bottom, but Hogan blocks it. Rock tackles Hogan, lays in punches. Hogan comes out back with a back suplex as JR and King start to acknowledge that the crowd is cheering Hogan.
Gosh, do they? Good for you guys.
Yeah. Hogan chokes Rock with his wrist tape. We're pretty far into the match here, and Hogan is still working heel.
He's trying.
The ref gets bumped. Rock hits the spine buster, locks on the sharpshooter. Hogan gets to the ropes. Rock pulls him back to the middle of the ring, and Hogan taps out. Hogan low blows Rock and then hits him with the rock bottom.
One of the few low blows that ever got a giant pop in wrestling history.
Hogan gets his belt off and whips Rock with it. Rock comes back with the DDT, gets the belt, whips Hogan with it, and then spits on the belt and throws it away. I loved that.
Such a good... And, like, that's the moment in this match where it kind of turns, and Rock's like, fuck it, I'll do some heel shit. Let's go.
Rock bottom on Hogan. Gets the 1, 2. Hogan kicks out and he hulks up.
He hulks up.
Like, this is the moment, like, I jumped off the couch.
Because, like, it had probably... I'm sure he did it when he was Red and Yellow Hogan in WCW.
Yeah, but...
But this is the first real Hulk up in 20 years. And, like, the Rock sells it so beautifully. Like, he gets that, like, huge-eyed look on his face, like, what the fuck? I didn't know you did this anymore.
Yeah, again, legitimately one of the biggest crowd reactions I've ever seen.
Just that moment where he starts shaking his fist. Like, the crowd, oh, God.
It's what they came to see.
And they had to give it to him. I have to imagine when they were on the mat, The Rock was like, look, man, Hulk up. We got to do this.
Yeah, I wonder if that was part of the plan. I mean, I think it probably was because they know they're turning him.
Yeah, that's the question, is we don't really know if they make the decision after the match or before the match. I think we both think that they made it before the match.
Yeah, I've heard various people say they had already made the decision. The only thing I don't remember for sure is whether he went to Tampa to get his stuff before or after the show.
Right. So, I mean, it would make a lot of sense. But it's a funner story if we imagine they called it on the fly. So I'm just choosing to make that my headcanon.
3 punches, big boot, leg drop, Rock kicks out at 2.
Just Hogan, like the whole arena of, oh.
Yeah. Air kind of comes out because I think everybody kind of knows he's not going to win now.
Yeah.
Hogan with another big boot. He goes for another leg drop, but Rock moves. Rock stalks Hogan, hits the rock bottom, pulls Hogan up, hits another rock bottom, kips up, hits the people's elbow. That's enough for the pin. It's an incredibly fun match. Should note, Hogan says he was working with broken ribs that he had broken in a match against Rikishi on a house show. Might just be the Hulkster working us, though.
He does sell his ribs at the end of the match, though. Like, when he's, like, going over to shake the hand. Like, he's selling the ribs.
Like, probably more than he otherwise would.
Because, I mean, not like The Rock worked his ribs at all during the match.
Hogan offers Rock a handshake. Rock accepts. Hall and Nash hit the ring and get in Hogan's face. Then they attack him. Rock comes back to help fight them off. Hogan goes to leave. Rock calls him back in and asks him to pose, and Hogan obliges. How amazing would it have been if they'd played Real American here?
And that's just the end. And that should have been the end of this show.
Yeah.
If we send it off with Hogan must pose, right?
Would have been tears in people's eyes.
Like it's the dream.
Yeah.
Like that Hulk Hogan would come back. Like if you're a Toronto wrestling fan and you get wrestling so seldomly, and like your hero is Hulk Hogan, but he's over in WCW and they never come to Toronto because it's a WWE town. So you haven't seen Hogan since you were a little kid. And here's your chance to see him, and he turns babyface, and he's the hero that you remember as a kid. Like, this is a dream. It's perfect. Everything about it is perfect.
Oh, that really, really should have been the end of the show.
And let me pour one out real quick. Like, people always, when people try to excuse the main event, a lot of the time they're like, well, and it's impossible to follow The Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Excuse me. That main event did not follow Rock versus Hulk Hogan. Let's pour one out real quick for Jazz, Lita, and Trish Stratus.
First time, the beginning of a WrestleMania tradition as the women get the death spot. What's your feeling on that? So that's sort of the idea is some matches are unfollowable. Like, what do you make of that? I don't know, because I feel like every year we see these New Japan shows where they put like 5 huge matches in a row on, and they never lose the crowd.
There's no such thing as an unfollowable match if the next match is good too.
Yeah.
That's the simple fact. Like, there are some matches you probably cannot follow Rock and Hogan. You probably cannot follow the first Michaels Taker.
Yeah. And that's just you build the show with some natural come down segments, which they have here as we go to WWF New York, where Big Show takes pictures with the fans. And then Finkel announces the night's attendance. You know, this is where they would drop the Hall of Fame segment today.
Yeah. But the thing is, you wouldn't need to do any of that if you just put it in the main event. Like, there was nothing else on this show that would have required any of that. So they knew in advance that it was going to be hard to follow. They did this to themselves.
Yeah. Next match is for the Women's Championship as Jazz defends against Lita and Trish Stratus. Lita's entrance music is by a band called Boy Hits Car.
Sure is.
God, what a garbage era. Nice pop for Trish. I love her ring gear here, the Canadian flag.
She looks awesome.
Yeah.
This poor era of women's wrestling, Steve. Where
There's just 3 good wrestlers. I like Jazz.
Yeah, but it's just like Trish and whatever.
I also didn't realize Jazz had only been wrestling for like 2 or 3 years at this point. I always thought she was a veteran.
No, because she had been in ECW, but they hired her like off the street.
Yeah, like she was just I don't know. Was she a bodybuilder? She's big.
Yeah, I think she was.
Yeah, Jazz just beats the shit out of both of them. Lita gets going with a Blue Thunder bomb. Jazz shakes that off, keeps dominating. Jazz hits a super fisherman suplex for the pin. That was pretty cool.
Awesome. Fuck yeah. Jazz is the best.
They did everything they could.
Yeah. Like, this was literally just Trish's job for like 5 years, is to wrestle in silence.
I mean, the worst death spot ever had to be, I guess maybe that's not an appropriate term. I guess the worst spot anybody was whoever had to go out after Owen Hart had just died. But the thing I was thinking of is when Lesnar beat Undertaker, and then they did like a 17-person women's match right after that.
Yeah. Again, that's a match that probably should have main evented that show. Especially if you know you're doing that. But hey, whatever.
Well, you know, the triple threat match with Daniel Bryan winning the title got the crowd back, proving.
Oh yeah, I forgot I forgot that was the same show. You're right.
Yeah. Christian goes to get in a cab to leave. Maven sneaks up on him and rolls him up for the pin. Christian throws a fit in the parking lot as Maven rides away in his cab. Lost his title and his cab.
I wonder if Maven got 2 paychecks. Hey, I wrestled and I was in a backstage segment. That's 2 checks, right, brother?
Yeah, the hardcore segments were a good addition to the show. That was fun.
Yeah, I mean they were quick, they were funny. It's just that's what the hardcore division used to be. That's kind of what they're trying to do with it now. It's just to have like funny through line segments to pad out time on shows.
Yeah. We go straight to the main event. No interviews or video package.
Horrible idea. Why would you not put the drowning pool thing here if you're going to do it?
Yeah, that would have been another good opportunity to cool things down before you heat it back up.
Okay, so this match.
We do get drowning pool again as they play Triple H to the ring.
And they're horrible, unfathomably, pathetically miserable version of his theme song.
Big pop for Triple H. Like, not as big as Hogan, probably not as big as Rock, but like definitely bigger than Austin or anybody else on the show.
Yeah, there's only 3 things people came to see on this show. One's The Rock, one's Hogan, and one's Triple H. Like, those are the 3 draws on this show. So when they say that there was no way that they could follow it, I think the fans were ready for this match. Like, they wanted to see Triple H win.
Triple H looks great. He's in great shape. Really impressive tan. Love a good tan.
Yep, hasn't gotten all puffy yet. He's still doing good.
Jericho's out second to not much reaction. I don't know. Does the crowd have mixed feelings because he's supposed to be the heel, but they're in Toronto, or do they just not care because he's been booked so weakly?
Jericho's never really been over in Toronto. Like, it's not like the other Canadian guys, and maybe it's because he spent most of his career actively preventing himself, because he's always a heel generally when they go to Canada.
Yeah.
But just whatever the case is, he's not one of those guys. And also, Toronto doesn't usually give a shit about people just happening to be from Canada. They always treat it like that. But, like, Test was never over in Toronto. Like,
yeah.
Christian was never over in Toronto. Edge was never especially over. Really, only Trish got that pop.
Yeah. Trish was actually from Toronto, and they would really play up the Canadian thing. I mean, her coming out, like, literally wrapped in the Canadian flag was cool.
Yeah, exactly. But no, I just think that they just didn't care about him at this point.
Yeah. Stephanie is with Jericho. She looks ravishing in her blue bodysuit.
God damn, she looks good.
Yeah.
Steph, you're bringing it hard here. Respect.
Jericho's left quad, or Triple H's left quad, the one he had torn the previous year, is heavily wrapped after a sledgehammer attack from Jericho on Monday. Hit him with the hammer in the leg and then put him in the walls of Jericho on the table like he did when he tore his quad.
That's a nice touch.
Triple H hits the jumping knee, but he comes up gimpy. He charges Jericho and gets backdropped to the floor. Jericho poses on the second rope, and Triple H pops up and throws him off into the crowd. That was quite a bump.
I have never seen that bump before.
No. This is, of course, Chris Jericho, who, when he was in Smoky Mountain Wrestling, like, took some crazy bump where he got thrown, like, over the turnbuckle and the ring steps and broke his arm. This was a bit more reasonable time to do that bump.
Yeah,
for
real.
Smoky Mountain show.
Absolutely.
Jericho works on the leg. Triple H comes back, gets Jericho in the figure 4. Stephanie rakes his eyes to break it. Triple H goes after her. Jericho comes in to break it up. Triple H dodges and Jericho hits Stephanie. Triple H throws Stephanie into the ring. He sets up for the pedigree, but Jericho catches him with a missile drop kick. Now Jericho really starts working the leg. The crowd starts chanting, "You screwed Brett" at Earl Hebner, but only lasts about 30 seconds.
That's how you know you lost the crowd, ladies and gentlemen, when they start chanting at the referee.
Jericho does the figure four around the ring post. Triple H fights back, but he's clearly wounded. What is not clicking about this match?
I'm not really sure. Triple H's style never really lent itself to these sort of epic main event WrestleMania matches. Like, he never had a good one. Like, his match against
He's
Orton.
had so many bad WrestleMania matches.
And
so many bad ones.
I think it's just that he does like a kind of a slow, plodding, old school heel style. And that's not what you want in the main event of a WrestleMania match. And like, he's trying to do like NWA style shit. And like, that's not what the fans want. And it's not the WWE main event style. And so it never really clicks. Like, it can work when the pressure's off. Like, he has a lot of great matches, but in these huge things, he tries to be Ric Flair, and it doesn't work.
Yeah, this match is very psychologically sound. There's like nothing wrong with the leg work. It just isn't particularly interesting.
Yeah, that's the thing. And like, I found it to be pretty much the same when he wrestled Cena, when he wrestled Orton. Like, they're matches that you could enjoy in other circumstances. They're just letdowns.
I mean, his good WrestleMania matches were against Undertaker, and like those were finisher fests.
Yeah, I like the one against Brock, but like those are kind of like undercard.
You are the only person who liked that match.
Look, it was not that bad.
I actually liked it too.
Yeah.
Jericho clears off the announce table. He goes for the walls of Jericho on the table, but Triple H blocks it. Triple H goes for the pedigree, but he gets backdropped off that table through the Spanish announce table. That is a big bump.
Yeah, it is. And at this point, it kind of feels like they're trying to win back the crowd. They know that they don't have it. And like, so they're just trying wild shit.
Doesn't work.
No, it does not.
I mean, is it that the conclusion is too foregone here? I mean, that's usually, like, we always kind of know who's going to win
part of
the
it.
main event of
Most of it is
WrestleMania.
that there's no heat on Jericho.
Yeah.
Let's say it. We always know who's going to win, but like, it doesn't matter what Jericho does. The fans don't care to boo Jericho. So while they like Triple H, there are no stakes. Like, nobody cares. It's inevitable that Triple H is going to win. We don't want to see Jericho vanquished because he's got no heat. Like, Stephanie getting bumped is the only thing anyone here could conceivably want to see.
No, and that's the other surprise to me is, how Stephanie didn't have that much heat at this point. I feel like she had just cooled off a lot from a couple years before when she was first with Triple H and she was truly red hot.
And like we said, like, the wedding really was the climax. Like, there's nothing after that.
In the ring, Jericho locks on the walls. Triple H gets to the ropes. Jericho grabs a chair. Triple H blocks it. Stephanie gets in the ring. Triple H pedigrees her. Yeah, somehow the match is just continuing as all of this happens.
I guess.
Jericho blasts Triple H with the chair behind the referee's back.
Yikes.
Sick chair shot. He covers, but only gets two. A series of counters ends with Triple H hitting the pedigree for the pin. Crowd does pop big for the finish. So big pop for Triple H winning.
Like I said, they really wanted him to win. They loved Triple H. They just didn't care about this match.
They didn't buy Jericho.
No.
In this spot in the main event of WrestleMania.
And that's the other thing. Anybody who complains about Jericho being like buried or whatever, Jericho wasn't in the right spot to be giving this much responsibility in the first place.
It wasn't that over.
Having him be in the main event,
he never really would be. He never headlines another WrestleMania.
Yeah, having him be in the main event of the WrestleMania that follows Austin Rock is an albatross he carried around his neck for the rest of his career. Like this, he gets buried down the card and he won't recover until he leaves, comes back, cuts his hair, turns heel.
Yeah. Starts wearing a suit.
Everything has to
like
change.
This. Yeah.
Because this is a failure, and it's his failure. Not because he was at fault for it, but like, he's clearly the one in this match that is the problem.
And it's straight back to the mid card after this for him.
Yeah. This is
He's not on Backlash. He gets to do the Hell in a Cell match with Triple H at Judgment Day to wrap that feud up. And after that, it is mid-card city.
by the end of the year, he'll be teaming with Christian as Vitamin C. That's how that year goes for him.
He does. I mean, he gets to work with Shawn Michaels. He gets to tear the house down with Shawn Michaels the year after this. So that is some redemption.
But that does kind of come out of nowhere. Like he'll redeem his career after this, but this could have been his arc is actually very similar to Miz's.
Similar to the Miz.
Yeah. This is the same as the Miz at WrestleMania. We're like, what the fuck? And actually, it's the same thing because The Rock is the real attention getter.
Yeah. Yeah. Except in this case, like Hogan doesn't actually like run in and kick the shit out of both guys like The Rock did, but he probably should have here.
Yeah.
So just call an audible, have Hogan run out and pin them.
Yeah. The equivalent is if it was like Miz versus Rock and like Cena ran out and then they just, yep, that's all anybody gives a shit about. Here we go. Well, I wonder if Jericho and Miz ever talk about that.
It is an interesting connection. I had not really made that connection before, but yeah, a very similar career arc where like they fall hard after that, but do eventually like find their redemption.
Yep.
I don't know. What would you grade this WrestleMania? I don't know. Is this a B minus?
I guess in a vacuum, it benefits tremendously from being the first one that we watched during this WrestleMania watching season. Because if we had watched it after watching 17, I'd be burying this show. As it is, I'm so excited to watch WrestleManias that like I think this got a bit of the benefit from that. So I liked it. I didn't hate it. But like this,
how much does the grade go up if they do Hogan and Rock last? That's a solid like half or full grade. I think we'd be talking about this as more like a B plus A minus show.
This would easily be one of the top 10 WrestleManias of all time. Maybe top 5 if they just do that. Even though the show's not that good. But just that it would have, I think if that was the case, that would be the best WrestleMania main event of all time.
Yeah, might well be. I mean, not the greatest technical match, but for a spectacle, yes. Which is what you're going. That's what the thing you to understand is that's what they're going for. They're going for moments, and sometimes they hit and sometimes they miss. Frequently they've missed. That would have been a huge hit. Like hard to come up with a better ending for WrestleMania than like Hogan and Rock. Like Hulk Hogan lost the match, but like found redemption in like reuniting with the fans and reconnecting with them, and him and Rock posed down together to end the show, and he passes the torch to The Rock.
The fans rekindle the flame of Hulkamania.
Yeah. And I would think that should be the beginning of maybe a year-long story of Hogan striving to get the title back. But instead, they hotshot it, and he gets the belt the next month at Backlash.
He buries Triple H's babyface run to get it.
Just kills it dead. Yeah, brother. We're gonna put the belt on Triple H. Hollywood Hulk Hogan, brother.
Well, I don't know, Vince. Really seems like that Triple H is a better heel than a babyface, brother. Maybe he and I could even draw some money down the road. Why don't we put the belt back at home where it goes? You know what I'm saying?
And his title run, I don't know if it was always the plan for him to dump the belt after a month, but like by the time they get to Judgment Day, there's like no question he has to lose it to Taker. Like he can't go on as champion. He's sinking under the weight of that belt.
The hilarious thing is that the pops are enormous. He wins the belt and they immediately stop. Like everyone in the audience is like,
"Oh no, that's not what we wanted.
That's not what we meant, guys. Hold on, chill out."
Not like that. I mean, like I said, you had a good year of like him building up, like really getting his confidence back, training hard, putting it all together, and like maybe you can do the Cinderella story the next year that he wins the Rumble and he goes to WrestleMania and he wins the belt one last time. Would have been amazing. A month later was way too soon.
In that scenario that you're creating, does he face Brock?
You can't put Hulk Hogan over Brock Lesnar. He can win the world heavyweight title by beating Triple H.
Okay, that makes more sense. I was about to say like
You
I'm
can't
trying
put
to
him.
imagine a world in which he jobs out Brock Lesnar.
That was what he wanted to do. That was why he left the company. Actually, I don't know if this is true. I've heard they double crossed him to get him to do that job to Brock, where Brock basically killed him. Like he was like, oh well, yeah, I'll do the job, but in a couple months we should come back around and I'll beat him next time. And they're like, sure, Jan.
Yeah, dude, no problem.
Yeah, totally, we'll do that. And then, like, kept calling Vince and getting his voicemail when he was asking him when they were going to do the rematch.
LOL. Vince sees him in the hallway and just like walks into an office like, nope, nope.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, the dream return of Hogan will turn into a nightmare, and he's out of the company by SummerSlam. But back next year for and one of the most insane matches I've ever seen against Vince McMahon. It's the battle in Seattle at Safeco Field, WrestleMania 19, a show that I think might be one of the most interesting pay-per-views of all time.
It is the weirdest fucking show from top to bottom. It is a show on which Shawn Michaels gets his it factor back, where he recovers his career.
Really becomes the Heartbreak Kid again.
It's
Mr.
a show
WrestleMania is born.
where Rey Mysterio makes his WrestleMania debut. It's a show where Kurt Angle and Brock Lesnar have a match that they've been building to since the moment Brock entered the company. And yet somehow Vince and Hogan steal the show.
Oh, and we left out Steve Austin's last match.
Yes, Steve Austin versus Hollywood Rock.
Yeah. And Triple H versus Booker T in the racist feud.
We're gonna do a 10-hour show, guys, and we're gonna need you
just
to be okay with
for
that.
it. This, I don't know, this might have been the longest show we've ever done, and that next week is gonna smash it.
And then we're gonna get to 20, and it's gonna double whatever that is.
That might have to be our first two-parter.
Oh man, we're gonna have to do a two-parter.
Might be like two. That show's 5 goddamn hours long. At least this was a slim like 3 hours and like 40 minutes or something like that.
I still can't even conceive, even now when shows are that long, but that includes like the pre-show and there's like a bunch of 20-minute matches. How WrestleMania 20 has like 55 matches on it. Everyone who's ever gotten a paycheck in the wrestling business is on that show.
So yeah, next time WrestleMania 19. Can't wait. I could do that show. It's 2:00 in the morning as we're wrapping up here, and I swear I could power through and do WrestleMania 19 right now.
I totally know what you mean, but we are not doing that.
Nope. Thanks for listening. We'll see you again next time for WrestleMania 19.